background.
Now I can't see like people asking questions and stuff. I can't see that. So like if people are asking questions, you might
I'm
have
gonna
to.
be able. I'll put them on the screen so you can see what the question is.
Okay.
So we are officially live, everybody.
Where will they come up on the screen at?
Here, let's give it a shot, guys. Just bear with us. See what it says on the screen? Can you see that?
This is going to be a great live stream.
So that was someone's comment. So I'll be
Okay.
able to show comments as people ask them, and then I'll be able to take it away.
Cool.
And I'll take away the Andrew is gay thing.
Why?
Even though it's true.
Joe, I think we can hear ourselves through your mic.
Yeah, I can do. It's like an echo.
I'll move it farther away. Hold on. There. Is that any better?
Yeah, I think so. No.
No.
Yeah, I can still hear it.
Well, it's like a really sensitive studio mic. You know what I mean? So it's like.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
All right.
You're saying is you're too high end.
Let's get started. Anyway. So basically, everyone who is live so far, feel free to ask questions at any time. I already do have one from someone for Andrew. Actually, technically, it'd be both of you. But for those who don't know who's on the screen right now, top right box, that's Andrew from Otter Creek Labs. Bottom box is some of the brains behind Otter Creek and the main machinist at Otter Creek, and that would be John. So give them all a round of applause. Thank you for attending tonight. We're just going to basically wing this and hopefully have a little bit of fun. No idea how long it's going to go or anything. But, Andrew, Aaron at Mostech asked me to ask you this question, so I figured it would be good softball to start us off with.
Okay.
And that is, he wants to know if Otter Creek has any plans for any integral suppressors or any more reflex cans.
We're doing a little bit of testing with that AR9 SD thing right now. The first test didn't go very well. The issue we're having is like on the MP5 SD, right? The barrel porting is really close to the chamber because it bleeds off all that pressure immediately because there's no big barrel nut like there is on an AR system. So with the AR system, you got to move those ports forward for the barrel nut, and the bullet has time to gain more speed. And in our first testing, the barrel nut we were using was apparently way too big. So even with like a very heavily Swiss cheese ported barrel, they were still going supersonic. So we're probably going to end up having to make a custom barrel nut or something of some kind that's shorter to get those ports closer to the chamber.
How many ports were you guys using?
Oh my god! I think it started with like 20, and I just kept porting it, and chronographing as I was porting, and I think I ended up at like 40 something ports. And going from 20 ports to 40 ports, it only lost like 10 more feet per second because the bullet was just already supersonic. There was nothing you could do
to slow it down. That's crazy. Wow. That's good info, though, because I can't tell you how many times on the forums over the years, I mean, there's so many people who've talked about trying to integral AR9 platforms.
That Ronin Art Company's doing it. If nobody's ever heard of Ronin Art, you can look them up on Instagram. But they're selling integrally suppressed AR9s that use an SD system, but they've went like custom barrel nut, custom handguard, and everything to make it work. I think that's probably what we'll end up having to do.
Gotcha. I think I saw. Are they in Payson?
I have no idea.
I want to say I saw someone in Payson, Arizona, who was doing barrels specifically already ported for this purpose. But that's really good info because, like, you know, if they haven't done any real testing with their barrel, you know, I mean, what do you really get? Are you really getting? Now, obviously, the whole premise behind the SD is to be able to shoot supers, regular full power ammo, have it bleed off enough pressure that the round stays subsonic, and you can basically shoot all the full power ammo you want and basically have subs. But obviously, let's say that an AR-9, you can't get it to go slow enough. So you do lose that, but at least it's still cool because you can still make it integral for suppressed rounds, subsonics. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world if you can't make it work with full power ammo, but it would obviously be super cool if you could.
We're going to make it work.
Yeah, we're going to make it work. John has an actual MP5 SD, and that thing is the shit. We were metering it one day, and with supers and John's MP5 SD, it was 119. And then on my standard MP5 with a CGS Mod 9, I think it was like 124. And so anybody who's shot the Mod 9 knows how quiet it is. It's insanely quiet. And so it's just hard to put into perspective how quiet an actual MP5 SD is.
Mm-hmm. Now, the other part of that question was reflex. I mean, obviously, you've done one reflex can to the public now. Are there any more reflex cans, maybe a 30 cal reflex can or whatever in the future, or at all planned at all? I mean, obviously you'd love to do everything at some point, but that's obviously also not realistic. I mean, you know that, I know that, but maybe they all don't know that.
We have
any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we have plans to do a 30 cal bore OCM5 eventually, just OCM5-30. But besides that, no, not really.
Do you plan to use the same baffles in that as the 5.56, or you plan to redesign it ground up?
Yeah, probably just use the same baffles. We'll test it and see. But I don't anticipate any issues using the same baffles. But it's something we'll definitely have to run a few tests on. Cool.
All right. Well, let's see what our people here, our viewers, man, that's so cool. We get to say that, isn't it? This one's for you, and I don't know if you put a new fresh dip in, but apparently you're known for your dip.
I ain't got one in right now, but I will here.
And then he also said, and this goes back to the question we were already talking about with an OCM 30, is there any timeline, I guess, is really probably the only other question we could ask on that front.
I mean, our goal
I know you hate timelines, trust me, I get that.
Our goal originally was before the end of this year, but we're really trying to wait on the demand for the OCM5 to drop off. So the OCM5 clone of the AEM5, the market has been just so constricted for like the last decade that the demand is huge. So we're having to work against like 10 years of low production. But eventually, once we get to the point where it can stay in stock like 24/7 and they're not going out of stock all the time, that's when we'll go ahead and do the 30 cal. There's just like, I can't really justify rolling out a 30 cal model when the 5.56 model is out of stock like 99% of the time.
How many models are you now currently making other than the ones you've now discontinued?
Hydrogen line, polonium line, OCM5, and lithium. So 4, I guess. But then the 4 models. But then in the hydrogen line, there's like the 6.5 bore or the 30 cal bore, stuff like that.
Cool. All right, let's see what else we got here.
John's if any kind of technical questions needs to be directed to John.
That's not true.
It is true.
All right, we'll try to hopefully someone asks something real technical and we get John talking for once.
Yeah, John's the engineer. He's the engineer and the brains, kind of the welder and the marketing guy.
Sorry, Austin, I didn't think about the headphone. Hey man, this is the first time we're doing this, okay? So, it's gonna have a learning curve. I apologize for any echo.
Oh, are they hearing echo too?
Yeah, they're asking why the audio kind of.
Oh God, I bet that's super annoying for them.
I'm sure it is. The only headphones I think I have are all wireless ones, and I've never set them up on my computer, so it'd probably take me a minute.
Yeah, I thought it was us hearing the echo. I didn't think about them being able to hear it.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. I mean, it's a learning curve, man. We'll figure this out. It's the first time we've done this, you know? People are going to have to give us a little bit of slack. Let's see. So, if we hide this and we throw this is going to be the next one. Does Otter Creek have any dealer recommendations for his stuff in Kentucky?
We don't really have any dealers in Kentucky that carry our stuff, which is kind of weird. Like, we're to the point where we're selling thousands and thousands of suppressors now about it, and like we have a dealer in every single state but Kentucky. It's just kind of weird. But I mean, I kind of like it. Like, my local gun shop and stuff, they don't even know what we do. Then I kind of like it that way. So I'm not like going around being like, hey, you should carry our products. I figure if they learn about them, they'll shoot me an email or something, and then it'll click. But Kentucky just historically is a low NFA consuming state. So if you go to like the ATF website, they'll tell you like what states consume the most NFA items. And out of the legal states that can buy NFA items, I think Kentucky's in like the bottom 5 or something. Just Kentucky, there's just not a whole lot of NFA and suppressor stuff here. It's just not really a big part of the culture like it is in Texas.
Yeah, I would say probably Texas, Arizona. I would think Florida maybe. Probably your Wyomings and maybe your Montanas. I've noticed Idaho seems to do quite a bit.
Yeah, Idaho does a lot. Texas is by far the biggest. I joke all the time, but it's kind of not really a joke that we could survive on our Texas sales alone. Like, if we never sold to another state besides Texas, we would probably be fine. They just buy a ridiculous amount of stuff. But yeah, Kentucky, there's just not really a whole lot of that here. I'm surprised every time I go to the range that like there's always somebody there who's never even got to shoot or hear a suppressor in person just because they've never really been around it.
That's interesting. I would like to probably add to this is I've also been, even in some of my local gun stores here, right? And I'll bring up, when you guys, for instance, send me cans that I'm going to form for or whatever, I'll be like, oh yeah, I've got a Resilient Suppressors can, I got an Otter Creek can, I got, and I'll talk about you guys. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, they have no idea who anyone is other than Silencer Co. or Dead Air. And that's just unfortunately how it is,
And really, I'm fine with that. I think John feels the same way. I don't want to be a Silencer Co. or Dead Air. Like, I have no urge of selling 50,000 suppressors a year and being a $1 billion company or something like that. That's just not something I want to handle or manage. As long as we have enough to pay the bills and retire at a decent age, I'm pretty content.
Yeah. Let's be honest. Too.
John actually not long ago was complaining that so anybody who's tried to buy one of our cans knows is like they stay out of stock like almost everywhere. It just seems like you can't hardly get them. But John was just complaining a few weeks ago. He felt we were making too many suppressors. He was like, we don't need to be making this many. Like, it's fine.
We'll get over it. I don't mind. I mean, I think we don't have a baseline for like rejects yet, which is the only thing I'm concerned about, but we haven't had any. So, yeah, but we're making tons, obviously, and things are going good. We're making plenty of money, at least right now. I don't know. See how it goes.
Yeah, it's going better than I've ever imagined. I'm thrilled with it.
I'm never going back to my day job. That's the plan.
No, that's what's cool is like one thing I've heard people say, like I've talked to a few people who said the reason that they would buy Dead Air over an Otter Creek or something is just because the longevity of Dead Air is like for sure there, like if you buy Dead Air 5 years from now, Dead Air is still going to be around and still be able to warranty it or whatever. Whereas if you buy like Crux suppressors or Crow suppressors, for example, they sold a shit ton of cans and then went out of business and they started breaking, and then there was like thousands of people out there with suppressors they couldn't use or get warrantied anymore. And so I get that completely, but kind of the cool thing about us being a small company and it just being me and John and us being able to crank out suppressors, right now we have enough. Like if we stopped selling suppressors today and didn't sell another single suppressor, we have enough money to sustain the company for 5 to 6 years. So we're guaranteed to be around at least another 5 years. So
because
that's
our expenses are literally just us living.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, like we really don't. I mean, we don't really have any expenses or bills. We both take a pretty low salary. I only pay myself $50,000 a year, just the equivalent of what I pay myself, and stick the rest of it in the Otter Creek bank account for R&D or whatever.
John, what about you?
Well, I want to be making more than 50,000 a year, but cost of living in PA is a little different than Kentucky. But yeah, no, I mean,
me too.
I agree. That's kind of our whole philosophy of the business too. Is just we want to stay small. We don't need to make 2 million suppressors a year, I don't think, to be able to live, and we don't want to have like 100 employees just because it's just not how we've wanted to run a business. Like right now, I have 1 employee, Andrew has 1 employee, and it's just nice being able to kind of do whatever we want and also make really nice stuff that people love. And we went out to that gun show at Stockpile in Idaho the other last month, and it was just really awesome meeting people who have our stuff. Like one dude bought like 5 poloniums or something, and it's just been really awesome, and it's really cool to see people enjoying the stuff that you're making. And if we became like, a 100-person company, you become corporate basically. We're not corporate right now, which everybody can tell. But it's just nice to be what we want to be, I think.
Yeah, it's super cool. Like to be developing a fan base and fanboys. I mean, like, there's always like CGS and Silencer Co. and Dead Air fanboys out there. Like, that's the only company they'll buy from. So it's really cool that we're starting to develop some of that. Like, there's some guys that own 4, 5, and 6 of our cans and stuff like that. So that's the coolest part to me is like people really enjoying what we're making. It just makes my day every time. It's awesome.
Yep.
Well, if you haven't noticed, I've been muting my mic, so hopefully everyone's been getting much better audio. But
it does sound.
I would say the same thing. I always worry. Like, I think about it in the terms of like muzzle devices, right? We love Darren's muzzle devices because he keeps the quality, very high. And when you start pumping out too many, you become that dead air, that plan B, that just lets, even under the best of intentions, things leak out there that just aren't up to the standards you want to keep.
And it's all about market share too. If you got a company like Dead Air who just has a massive market share, and they're selling 50, 60,000 suppressors a year, even if just 1% of them has problems or something like that, or 1% slips by QC, that's then a huge amount of suppressors that are out there. Whereas us, our best month so far, we've sold 500 suppressors. So if we sell 2,000, 3,000 suppressors in a year and 1% of them slips by QC, that's a really, really small number that's out there. So it comes back to market share.
All right, let's try to move on, and we've got a bunch of questions since then. So first one here, someone just basically wanted to tell you that, and I know you can see it on the screen, but that they're really happy that you put your barrel lengths, but specific to certain calibers, not just, whatever. I know you already know, but I just kind of wanted to show this comment here because, any pat on the back from your customers is a good thing. I would like to say, too, one thing is that it's tough for a company to put warranty restrictions on cans. You risk overdoing it. You risk underdoing it. And you also risk whatever you do put on there to kind of be misinterpreted. I've been seeing that a little bit with the Enticer, for example. I think because we have 10.5-inch barrel on there, it almost kind of presents it like it is weak. I want to, but I know that 10.5 has become kind of a synonymous term at this point as well. But
we overbuild and we underbuild and overbuild and underrate things. So like our polonium, we rate it for a 10.3 barrel, but it passes the 4.75 barrel test easy. You can beat the crap out of it on a 7.5-inch barrel just fine. So we're really, really conservative when it comes to those estimations. And occasionally I'll have somebody email me like, hey, your barrel length restriction says 10.3, but I have this IWI Galil that's 10 inches. Is it going to be okay? And I'm just like, yeah, so if you give people an inch, they take a mile. So if I put 10-inch barrel restriction up there, then I'd have people messaging me and asking me if they could use a 9-inch barrel. And then if I put 9-inch barrel, I'd have people asking me if they could use an 8-inch barrel. So I'm really conservative with it. That way I have a little leeway when people reach out and ask, and I can be like, yeah, it'll be fine.
And I would say that goes the same for DDC. I mean, the warrant, like the barrel restriction stuff is a guide. No one's going to draw a line in the sand and ding you over 0.1 or 0.2 inch of a difference in barrel length. In a company that would do that, well, first off, you could just straight up lie to them anyway. Don't. But I mean, let's be honest. Most cans, at least in our little B team group of people, we're putting conservative.
I love that.
Yeah, I know. I love it too. We're putting a very realistic, warranty base out there, and have every intention to probably over deliver on that. So I just kind of wanted to say that it's
too many factors other than just barrel length. It's firing schedule. It's just you can't cover it all.
We've had 2 poloniums come back for warranty repair, and we fixed them both. One, the can walked off and it got an end cap strike. I sent you some pictures of that, I think, Joey. They were shooting it using direct thread, and they must not have tightened it enough, and it loosened up, and they didn't know it. And before they knew it, it was almost hanging all the way off the end of the barrel, and it got an end cap strike, and we fixed that. And then the other one, it was an SOT, and he ran like 4 D60s through it without stopping on a 10.5-inch barrel, and part of it got a little melty. We fixed that. It's not a big deal. Things happen. We'll fix them. It takes 5 minutes to fix one. It's not a big deal.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, so far. I mean, obviously, I have a lot of privileged information because of our friendship, but I've been extremely impressed with your guys' line of cans, especially the polonium. The polonium is, just done fantastic. That reversed first baffle, which obviously anyone who has one can see, obviously helps quite a bit, which is pretty cool to see someone do that. And
that goes. I'm surprised it doesn't get used more, really. So if you look up, I forget the date. I think it's like 1909 or 1910 or something like that. There's a 1909 or 1910 suppressor patent that shows the first baffle, the blast baffle, being reversed. And then you see it pop up again in like the 50s and 60s. And then you see it pop up again in like the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. It's been used quite a bit over the last 100 years, seemingly on more obscure things. Like there's a company a lot of people have probably never heard of, Human Engineering Labs was the name of the company, and they built the suppressors that went on the special forces and special operations, all that stuff, M16s during the Vietnam War. And they used a reverse baffle on theirs for the same reason, because they found on just really, really high rate of fire machine guns where they're just spraying mags into the jungle and stuff, that first baffle being reversed helps a lot.
Awesome. Well, we got a question here. Silencer Shop, are they going to be stocking the lithium?
So it kind of goes back to us.
Once we get stock.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to us talking about how we don't want to be a huge company. Silencer Shop has reached out to us, and we've had meetings with them, and they really want to carry our product. but we've told them no for right now. And it's just simply because they want to order way more suppressors than we feel like we're capable of producing and stocking. So Silencer Shop, when they order from like Dead Air or something, they'll put in a PO for probably like 2,000-3,000 suppressors, and if they put in a PO with us for 2,000-3,000 suppressors, we piss our pants. It's just not the kind of volume we can work on right now. And so it's nothing against Silencer Shop. I would love to work with them because that's like the pinnacle of, suppressor shops. Everybody knows who Silencer Shops is. But right now we just cannot produce the volume that they want to buy at. But we are waiting on some new machines that are supposed to be coming and things like that. And so hopefully in the future we'll be able to produce some more cans and work something out with them.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and I mean, obviously some of these questions I already know the answers to, but our viewers don't. But yeah, again, just to elaborate, I mean, you guys, Silencer Shop is such a massive dealer that they want these big contracts, and then you have to be able to deliver on those contracts, as well as try to keep all your other relationships you've already, have. And like Andrew just said, it's just extremely difficult, and if you can't or don't want to grow that large either, well, it's just not possible. But I do realize that a ton of you are people who want to buy off Silencer Shop, and I also want to just kind of state is, for instance, I use Silencer Shop even for my own personal stuff, but
Yep.
a lot of people don't know that you don't have to buy a can from Silencer Shop to use Silencer Shop.
Yeah, you just got to pay like a fee.
Yeah, you can buy a can from anyone, and as long as your local gun store who does use Silencer Shop, is a Silencer Shop dealer, they can absolutely transfer you that can through Silencer Shop. So I do it all the time. So Don't be discouraged to buy directly from anyone, any suppressor. As long as all that really matters is what your local gun store can do. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, it's super easy. All you do is you buy cans. So say you find one at Bauer Precision or Hanson Brothers or something you want to buy. You order it. You have it sent to your local gun store. If your local gun store has a Silencer Shop kiosk, that means they work with Silencer Shop. So then your local gun store would just call up Silencer Shop and be like, "Hey, I just got this suppressor in. Here's the manufacturer and here's the serial number and model number. I need you to unlock the kiosk for me to be able to use this." Silencer Shop will send you a code, and you pay Silencer Shop. It's a really low fee, like $5 or $10, and they basically like jailbreak or unlock the kiosk to where you can use it even with the suppressor you didn't buy from Silencer Shop. It's super easy, and it only costs like $5 or $10. I do that too.
Which, if people don't realize, even if you are an SOT, the cans that we want in our own personal lives still have to be transferred just like anyone here. They still have to go on a Form 4 and be transferred. So,
yep.
If it's a can the business isn't going to own, we still have to do the same thing anyone else does. So
yeah, they all have to say the business residence. So like right now, I'm at my house, but I don't have any machine guns here or any suppressors here because they're all owned by Otter Creek. So, all my machine guns and suppressors are at the shop, and I don't keep them at my house just because they're owned by Otter Creek. So if I wanted to, have a suppressor for my personal use that I kept here at the house, I would still have to form for it. There's ways around that. Like you can go in your A&D book, and Otter Creek Labs, the business, has to write a letter that says, Otter Creek Labs, the business, gives Andrew King, the employee, permission to take this suppressor home for use or something like that, and stick it in the A&D book. And you can do stuff like that, but I just usually leave things there.
Which I think pretty much covers Eric Yonke here's question. Can one of the dealers on the Otter Creek site ship to an SOT local to me? And basically that answer is absolutely.
Yep.
Like we've just pretty much gone over. But
just like ordering a gun. If you've ever ordered a gun online, you just buy the suppressor online, and whoever you bought it from just ships it to your local gun store.
So this one's for John. How different is the internal and external construction on the OCM5 compared to the AIM-5?
Well, the AEM5 mostly just has, it's not even baffles, isn't it? More like little cones inside of it. Little
if you don't know
radiuses.
the answer, I can probably.
I do too.
Yeah,
So-
Andrew knows this better than I do. I just make our stuff work.
There's
I
a
don't,
couple. There's a couple
keep track of
improvements.
everybody else.
The AEM5 uses stamped parabulum baffles, kind of like a Surefire does, and then they're tack welded. And then for the tube, he takes sheet metal and forms it into a tube, like rolls it up like you would a newspaper or something, and then welds down the seam. That's how the tube is made on the AEM5s. And then that baffle stack that's tack welded gets pressed in and then welded. And then on ours, we have a solid tube stock, so it's not rolled up and then welded. The tube is monolithic, one solid piece construction that we machine the ID on, and then the baffle stack is full circumference welded instead of tack welded, and then gets pressed in there. So as far as just construction goes, yeah, that's the AEM5 patent. As far as construction goes, we've made several improvements to the OCM5 just for speed of warranty work and speed of construction, things like that.
I keep forgetting to unmute myself. But
Yeah, like part of the reason that AEM5 production is so low is not necessarily on Ron. It's a really hard suppressor to make. Like if you could think, okay, what's the hardest possible way I could make a suppressor? I want to make this suppressor, and I want it to be hard as fuck to make. I want it to take forever. That's how the AEM5 is designed. It's just a very, very hard design to make, and so we took it and we really, really simplified it for speedy production. And
Well, I think the other aspect is it's just old too. I mean, it's nothing wrong with it, but I mean,
it
it was
works
made
good though. It's a great
30 years ago is when it was made.
Yeah,
And you know, manufacturing has come a long way since then. There's just different
mhm.
ways of making suppressors at the time.
And
Yeah,
the
like
design,
the-
and the design still works. It works well.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Oh,
so
The
does
way-
556. Other things other than 556, not so much. But 556.
The way we manufacture the OCM5, I don't think could have been done 30 years ago. The stuff that
No.
we do to it. So it's just kind of, you know, we took the looks. It looks like an AEM5 and it mounts like an AEM5. But as far as construction and how it's manufactured and what's inside of it is completely different. It's kind of updated for modern manufacturing techniques. You can make an OCM5 about 4 times faster than you can an AEM5, and it's
Where are you
still
getting that number?
well. Just that's looking at Ron's production. I mean, he makes 250 AEM5s a year, and we make 1,000 or more OCM5s a year. So I mean, maybe we are just working faster than him to an extent, but they're much faster to make.
I don't know anything about his production. I mean, maybe he's got a guy doing it once a month or something. I don't know. So who knows?
I remember the first time I saw that they were using a welded seam tube, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah, that blew my mind too when I learned that. That's
everyone
there's
has
nothing-
always associated them with just being like this super strong can.
I don't think that. As far from a strength standpoint, you know, if something's welded right, if you do the weld right, the weld itself is stronger than the metal. You're going to have a metal failure before you have a weld failure if the weld's done right. So as far as welding it down a seam of a formed tube, from a strength perspective, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. It's just a production perspective. I mean, you have to take that sheet metal and roll it into a perfectly round tube and form it and then weld it, and it stay perfectly round, and it would have a very high scrap rate. That would be a nightmare. If we had to make OCM5s like that, I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't even attempt it.
All right, so let's try to move on here because we do have quite a bit to catch up on. But plans for a stainless 22 can.
Not stainless, but we do have plans for a 22 can. That's something we would like to start.
Why does he want it stainless?
Because you can use ultrasonic and the dip method on stainless, but you can on titanium too. Kind of what I have planned for. We haven't really started on it. We've just kind of kicked around some ideas and talked about it because we know it's something we want to do. But kind of the direction I would like to see it go is an aluminum tube with titanium baffles, and the titanium baffles be shielded in a way that the tube never gets dirty at all. So the tube never ever has to be cleaned. You just would slide the titanium baffle stack out. That's the only part that would have to be cleaned. And with the titanium baffle stack, you could still use the dip method or an ultrasonic or something like that and be just fine. But you would be really, really light with being an aluminum tube and titanium baffles. That's kind of the direction I would like to go with it. But we'll see. We probably still got a little bit to go before we start working on that.
And for those that don't know, Simple Green does make an aircraft grade detergent that is strictly for aluminum. So while you won't get around any cavitation issues, you can use this on your aluminum to clean, and it works actually really, really well. It's used on airplanes, and obviously we can't have any material issues on airplanes, commercial airplanes. So there are solutions to clean your aluminum suppressors out there, especially the ones that have been anodized or whatever. So it's not the end of the world. A lot of people associate aluminum with, just being this far inferior material. And I get it on 22. 22 needs such maintenance compared to any other can. But there are solutions. There are solutions. Which brings us to any testing between lithium versus CGS. I'm assuming it means Mod 9, Omega 9K, Obsidian 9, etc.
Yeah, we did a big metering day. It's been a while back, and at the breakneck pace I shit post on the Otter Creek page, it's probably a mile back on the feed. But a couple months ago, we did a metering day with the lithium, which is what's now going to be the final production version, versus the Mod 9. I think we had the Mod 9, the YHMR 9, Obsidian 45, a couple others, the Resilient Suppressors, RS9. We had a couple other ones, and I posted the results for ear, muzzle, and ear average between like 5 different cans or something like that. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. I know the Mod 9 is insanely quiet though.
Well, I gotta say, I just got my RS9 and my RSP from Resilient to shoot for the channel, and I mean, I gotta say, I am extremely impressed with what Tyler did. I already know you are as well, but I figured we might as well give him a little pat on the back while we're on this live.
Yeah, I mean, he beat me, and I posted it. I mean, I know in our testing, the RS9 beat the Lithium 9, and I still posted the results. I mean, it is what it is. You can't win them all. I mean, it is a much larger suppressor, though. It's probably about 2-3 inches longer or something like that. It's a much larger suppressor, but it beat us. It's a very quiet suppressor.
Yeah, I'm super impressed. He definitely did some outside the box shit, which we'll talk about on the Patreon here in probably a week or two. But what do we got next here? I know Otter Creek mentioned that they're looking into what they can do with a higher budget 5.56 can, but I'm curious on the timeline on that. I know, again, we're back to the timeline bullshit, but go ahead and give it a shot.
Timeline, I don't know. I can't tell you. But I can tell you that we are actively working on it, and we are going to be conducting another series of tests on it next week. It's something we just kind of have to do when we have time. We'll run production for a month straight, and then we'll make a couple prototypes and dick around for like a week, and then go back to doing production. So this week coming up is our prototype and dig around week, where we'll be doing some more testing on it. It's essentially It's essentially going to be an Inconel polonium with a couple different features. Is kind of what I have in mind for it, but we'll see where it ends up.
John, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think we have the plans. Just all of our cans, I'd say, are priced really well for an average person to buy. Like if you look at the spectrum of cans for sale, we aren't gouging people for our cans, especially the polonium. Like we're destroying kids, and it's $500. Like it's just ridiculous. So like this one, we're gonna go real Gucci with it. I think like a really sexy box, um, made of the best material possible. I think we were throwing around the idea of like removable end caps. I don't want to tease too much because who knows what it'll end up, but yeah, we're just gonna try to go real Gucci and charge a lot for it. But
Yeah, well, I mean, so the polonium, I mean, that is going to be, I mean, you can't hardly destroy one unless you have a machine gun and a ton of ammo and a ton of D60s loaded up, or a belt fed that you're ready to run 500 rounds through. You're not going to be able to break one. You just can't. And so that is going to be fine for 99% of users. But
and it's $500.
Yeah. Some people have FU money. Like I'm friends with a guy. I won't say his name. If he's watching this, he'll know I'm talking about him though. I'm friends with the dude who will not buy a $500 item, no matter how good it is. Just because it's $500, it's not expensive enough. He'd be like, okay, this one is $500, but this one is $1,000. And it's basically the same thing. I'm going to buy the $1,000 one because it's $1,000. And so, some people have FU money. So we want to keep the current polonium how it is for the normal working man, very affordable. And then we want to make a version for people with FU money who have, $1,500 to blow.
And we talk about this a lot in our own private conversations, but that was kind of the whole take for our B team. Our resilient, diligent Otter Creek. We're all looking to make the best cans possible, but give them to you guys at that YHM pricing or that dead air pricing if it needs to be a little bit higher. I know I personally feel like YHM is kind of like the starting point, and anything that doesn't at least perform as good as YHM stuff is garbage. And I wouldn't say garbage, but just really not worth your money. So then if we can all in our little group give you better performance than YHM for pricing around the same thing, why would you not want to buy that?
Yep.
Yeah, I personally like that YHM. I'm a cheap guy though.
Yeah,
I love YHM. The R9, I think me and Andrew actually both love the R9, and I would love to make a stainless version of our lithium that we're coming out with too, because it basically would be an R9.
Yeah, R9
and cheaper.
So YHM's a weird company. It's the only company that has ever made the suppressor I've been most impressed with and most surprised with, and also made the suppressor I'm most disappointed in.
What are those?
The R9 is one of the most impressive suppressors I've ever shot. Just for its size, its OD, its length, how much it's accomplishing, and how small of a size it is. It's very, very proficient. You can get them on sale for like $350. I see sometimes it was beating, like, just demolishing suppressors that were like $800, $900, $1,000 in our testing. It is the most impressive for its size 9mm can out there, and that's the one that we really, really struggled to beat. That was our goal, was to beat the R9. Like, we just wanted to beat the R9 because of how impressive it was. And we did it, but I think it was just by like half a decibel or something. Half a decibel to a decibel. We just skated by beating it. But it's very impressive. And then the one I've been most disappointed by is the Resonator K. And we all know K cans suck. 30 cal K cans are very loud, but the YHM Resonator K is probably the loudest 30 cal K can I've ever shot. It's like they tried really, really super hard on the R9 and spent thousands of man hours of R&D, and then with the Resonator K, they were just like, meh, here it is, whatever. We didn't even test it. Have fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm going to skip a few things that I think we've pretty much touched on or answered already just by default of talking about other things. So if your question gets skipped here, I apologize. If you don't feel like we've already answered it, re-ask it below. But one of them was I saw Andrew was messing with Inconel. Is there a possibility of seeing an Inconel polonium? Obviously, that's the fuck you can, more or less, so we can skip that. But then here's one that I feel like you might want to address, and that is, I guess my concern is, and this isn't a jab at Otter Creek, but if they go out of business, what would someone do? And before you even answer, I'd like to just say this. Guys, you can always get your cans record.
Yeah.
Yes, it might cost you a little bit of money, but someone else doing it, but it's not the end of the world. But continue on. Go ahead and answer this guy's question.
I don't. So going out of business was something I was very, very worried about for the first 6 months of Otter Creek. Something that was always on my mind. But now, kind of like we talked about earlier, we have enough money right now to where if we stopped selling suppressors today, Otter Creek could be sustained for 5 years. So it's like a guarantee that we're going to be around for at least another 5 years. And that's if, starting right now, we never sell another single suppressor. But by the end of the year, if sales keep going the way they are, I mean, we'll have money to stay around, however long we want. So that's been pretty cool. The first 6 months of Otter Creek, I was super, super worried about that. To now, where it's not a thought that even crosses my mind. But if that ever were to happen, something unfortunate was to happen, I mean, who knows? But you got places like Echo, places like that will work on other manufacturers' suppressors and fix other manufacturers' suppressors. That's really all he does, just about it. I mean, he's fixed a lot of AAC cans, a lot of Crux cans, some Surefires. That he's an SOT manufacturer, but he specializes in fixing other companies' products if they've gone out of business or whatever. And there'll always be people like that around, but it's a thought that doesn't even cross my mind nowadays.
Suppressors aren't that complicated. They're just a bunch of metal stacked together. It's not like a freaking car.
God, yeah, that kills me.
Right? Like
you got some of the companies out here. They're like, yeah, this is real engineering. You gotta know what you're doing to do this. This is the hardest shit. Don't even try to make suppressors unless you have a 10-year engineering degree. And I mean, in reality, they're the simplest part of any firearm, like John said.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
There's no moving parts. There's nothing. I mean, look at the Form 1 world. No offense to the Form 1 world, but there are some people in there, I'm not even sure if they can tie their shoe, but yet they can put together a really good suppressor. I mean, it's not hard. Now, how quiet a suppressor is or how well it performs, you got to know what you're doing a little bit there. But as far as just the act of making a suppressor that suppresses sound, I mean, it's not hard.
And then that brings to not implying that they will. I think the chance of dead air sounds like outliving these companies like Diligent Defense, Resilient, Otter Creek is a good possibility. I would like to say this. I feel like the odds are higher for a dead air or a silencer co to go out of business than a medium to smaller sized established company like we basically have at this point. You get into a dead air size. I don't think people realize this, or a silencer co size. Your overhead is huge. You're answering to a lot of people who have investment levels of money. There's just so many more moving parts, and I bring the perspective of I've worked for really big companies in my life, and the smaller companies you don't like you've just said. You've got money in the bank. Your overhead is low. You're just paying yourselves, and that's pretty much it. Other than the businesses building, and all you really have to do is keep making a half decent product, and you'll always probably have at least a base level of sales. You look at something like a Crux or anything like that. Well, first off, you got a bunch of, no offense to them, but their cans weren't exactly
Good.
Yeah, good. We're just dealing with an entirely different thing. And then to elaborate even more for, say, like John, I can tell you, he has a set of skills that, let's say the business wasn't doing very good, he can easily pivot and do work for other businesses to bring in income to keep the business going. Or Diligent, same kind of thing. Lot of different avenues that are revenue streams other than the can side. So, other than just pretty much wanting to pack it up and say, fuck it, I don't want to build cans anymore, I don't see any of these businesses going out of business.
Oh, no, especially...
Dude, that's what I just said. We're never going back to our day jobs. We've just got so much stuff now. We have so many ideas. Like, I have an entire bolt system for the AR that I want to do. Like, just so many things. But the ball's already rolling. It's just never going to stop because we have too many connections. We have too much. We have the presence. And unless, like, 50% of our cans fail tomorrow or something, like, it's just not... I just feel like we're in such a good spot right now. And we have so much more down the tube, too, that we're going to be... we don't want to be more than a suppressor company, I guess I'd say, but we are... I would think we're going to come out with some things that are not exactly suppressors at some point.
Yeah, we have ideas for all kinds of stuff, not suppressor related, but firearm related, from mounting systems to bolt carrier groups to gas blocks. We have ideas for all kinds of stuff, and then we're doing a lot of work for other people right now too. We're making we're doing the welding for like 3 different companies right now. We're manufacturing suppressors for another company right now. We're doing some other parts for other companies. Even if we stopped selling suppressors, we would still do extremely well just with the work that we do for other businesses and other people. And that's not even... So we calculated it up a while back. Otter Creek needs to sell 100 suppressors a month to pay ourselves our salary and pay our bills. That's all we need to sell is 100 suppressors a month. And we sell more than 100 suppressors a week on average. And that's 100 suppressors a month, not including the accessories, the muzzle devices, and the work we do for other people. So financially, I feel like we're very stable. We actually had a company meeting a while back, and John and our other business partner was complaining that I was leaving too much money in the bank account. They thought we had too much money just sitting there. So financially, we are very stable, and I feel like we're going to be just fine for a long, long time.
Yeah, dead air might outlive us. I don't know. It's hard to say about that question exactly, but at the end of the day, everybody's got to die, and eventually the business either has to get handed off or sold.
Oh yeah,
something will 60 happen. Years. If you're talking about 60 years from now.
Yeah,
but
we have years. But.
Even now though, we've kind of already talked about like exit plans for the business. Like obviously it's not anytime soon, but we want to be able, we want to take care of our customers that we have now, even that long from now. They have somewhere.
We want to. I want to retire young anyway. I don't know how John feels, but I'd like to retire young. My goal would be, so I'm 27 right now. My goal would be to retire at 40. So 13 years from now, retire would be my goal, but we'll see.
I'm probably never going to retire. I'll have money that I can do whatever I want, but I'm never going to retire.
Yeah, I want to retire, dude. I want to retire and just move on to a little farmhouse where I can sit on my porch all day long and do absolutely nothing.
I'll visit you.
Yeah, guys. For companies to really disappear, they have to go bankrupt, not just retire. Most companies that sell their company, the company buying it typically will still warranty cans. You look at AAC, that's a completely different setup, right? That's a company that went out of business, and then someone has restarted it from scratch. Basically scratch with the same name.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's why you're getting that. Okay, those old AAC cans aren't warrantable, you know.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, how many of us have really needed to warranty a can too that we didn't purposely try to fuck up in the first place? But anyway, I mean, I feel like we can probably move on from this question. Eric, I actually never received my Saucy Joe's end cap. Not sure what happened. I can only think of one person that didn't receive a warranty cap, and that was due to the fact the company closed down between then and what was going on, and a lot of uncertainty in the world. Contact Alvin Devins. I'm sure he can help you out. That said, we can move on from that. I mean, if you guys want to try to touch on this one real quick, it goes back to what are the benefits of the reverse baffle. But before you guys say anything, I'd like to say the first time I saw a reverse baffle in cans, I want to give someone credit, basically, and I can't think of their username at the moment. But it was back on the old Form 1 suppressor boards that is unfortunately defunct now. And there was a guy, the username started with an S, and he used to swear by the reversed first baffle. Now, that said, it was not because of, longevity or potential to take abuse. He would swear by it because of supposedly sound suppression. But regardless, I want to give someone the credit that they're due for at least from what I saw. So I'm giving that shout out now because we all came from someone. We all have learned from each other. So I think it's important to remember that. But go ahead and answer that question if you'd like.
Just durability, erosion resistance. So like what we've seen now with the polonium, we knew we wanted to keep it at a really low price point. But we also wanted it to be as durable as suppressors that were, double the cost. And so to do that, we had to use different geometry. There certain, people don't think about how different geometries are affected by erosion and things like that differently, but they really, really, really are. You take a 17.4 standard baffle and dump a mag through it with a 4.75 AR and it's going to be gone. But you take a reverse baffle and it's just not. I mean, it's just a lot more resistant to erosion. So that was our way of giving a very erosion resistant, durable blast baffle without having to go to a more expensive material like stellite or Inconel or something like that. It was purely from a durability standpoint. It's just a much more durable geometry.
No, I agree with that. Andrew came up with the reverse baffle for us for sure. That's all credit for him. I'm not 100% convinced yet, actually, of this reverse baffle.
For years, but I didn't come up with it. It's been used for 100 years, but I'm the one who was like, there's a reverse baffle going in this.
But what we're doing actually this next week of testing, we're going to be making a set of tests to kind of confirm and prove for without a doubt that the reverse baffle is better. Because I'm not personally convinced yet that it actually is. And yes, the polonium is awesome and blast, whatever. But in my mind, so right now, if you think about our blast baffle that's reversed, it's currently the distance from the end of the tube, the muzzle end of the tube, is measured from where that cone starts. And since it's a reverse baffle, the tip of it is a whole half-inch farther away than where a normal baffle would be. So the measuring of the tip is not the same. So it's already farther away. But I do agree because, the gases are like a jet stream, which is something I was talking to Darren about here. He told me about the other day. I mean, the fact that the baffle is not perpendicular to the flow is definitely impacting, those particles smashing into it and not destroying it. They're more bouncing off of it. And there's definitely benefits to it.
The way I always explain people is picture you're on a drill press and you're trying to drill a hole in something. Erosion on a standard baffle would work like you're taking that drill bit and you're just drilling into a straight, flat piece of metal. Whereas with a reverse baffle, you're trying to take that drill bit and drill on a sloped surface. And if you've ever tried to drill on a sloped surface, that drill bit just slides right off. It doesn't drill. So when you got that standard baffle, you got that flat baffle face, that bore hole, and that gas and those unburnt powder and particulates are just smashing down on that and acting like a drill, essentially just getting rid of it, eroding it over time. But if you flip it, all those particulates and gas are just sliding off of it instead of just drilling a hole through it, basically.
Yeah, and for our viewers who might not know, what erosion from a baffle basically is you have little particulate matter coming out of that jet stream. It's moving extremely fast. It's extremely hot, and you have a surface, which is your baffle material, and you've got a specific amount of surface hardness, okay? And that little particle, and it might be a fairly soft part, but some of those particles can be actually extremely hard. And what they have to do is they have to break the surface. And if they can even crack it a little bit, that leads to where you start to get plastic deformation, and then you start to erode the material. And exactly like Andrew said, if it skips off, that's completely different. There are 3 different types of abrasion in any material. So we've talked about this more, me and Andrew, in some more privileged kind of conversations. But that's kind of the basics of it, guys. So when you can't go to say, and there's even some debate about surface hardness. Does a harder material actually resist abrasives better or worse? And there is some debate about that. Most people would say you want something with the highest surface hardness as possible, but it's kind of really a mix. You do want some ductility in the material, especially on the sub layer. I've been doing a lot of reading about it too as well, because there's a lot of applications out there in the world that see some also very extreme conditions. And inside of a suppressor, especially the first 2 baffles, you're not really getting anything but the most extreme conditions that you can really dream up, especially when you're shooting on an extremely short barrel with a cartridge that doesn't burn up all of its powder, or at least the majority of its powder, in the barrel length specified. So, you really do have to think of it very similar to sandblasting. It really is very similar to that. So,
all right, we have time for one more question, and then me and John are gonna have to hop off.
We have a date.
I gotta put the kids to bed.
Well, John, you don't have to leave if you don't want to then, but Andrew does.
I can stick around till 10:20, but I got hockey actually playing with Ryan.
Let me scroll through these questions here and see if I can't cherry pick a couple good ones.
Yeah, we might be able to hit a couple fast or something. Yeah, John doesn't have to.
Eric was asking about a TI sleeve inside of an aluminum tube on hydrogen. Hydrogen is a full welded titanium can, just so you know. The skirts act as the tube.
Well, here's a good one I can't resist, Andrew. Can you read it?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
We've actually talked about it a little bit, but we'll see. Maybe one day.
I think it'd be cool.
I do too. I actually had a conversation with Brandon about that last night, about loyalties to each other and all of that, and yeah. So, but that's a conversation for another day.
Okay, I mean, pick one more. That was a short one.
All right, here's one. Why does Surefire seem to have the best flash suppression? Is it due to baffle geometry, lack thereof, or do they have internal flash hiders like a polonium?
No, two things. So, Surefire uses a end cap. If you pick up a Surefire RC2, I wish I had mine here. Don't. But the end cap, the bore at the end, instead of being parallel, slightly canted out like a mini funnel. Picture a funnel kind of on the end cap. And And that shape works really good as flash hiders. Like if you look at some of the old sniper flash hiders from like World War One, World War II, and some of like the AK-47 flash hiders and stuff, com block style flash hiders, they use that same shape to suppress flash, and so because of that, it does really well. And then it uses a parabolum baffle with ports. And how parabolum baffles work is each baffle might be slightly different. They're domes, and the domes are designed in a way to where it bounces gas in different directions. And so it's bouncing it through ports, through the parabolums, and then through that flash hider style end cap. Even though it doesn't look like a flash hider, that's kind of the cool thing about Surefire is it does have a flash hider end cap, but just most people don't realize that it's a flash hider end cap because they're not familiar with that shape. It goes back to geometry.
Real quick, Austin, yes, I'm going to be saving this live stream for those who want to go back and rewatch it. Here's the Surefire cans. I mean, this is kind of a shitty picture. If you go on my Discord, on my Patreon, I just actually posted an image from Surefire on one of their patents. And then if you give me a bit, I might dig through one of my old phones. I've got actual pictures of their baffles literally off the assembly line. But I'll try to do that. But 2 more questions, and I'll let you 2 get out of here. First off, I'm going to take this. So let's see. The first one is this one right here. Is the hydrogen just a static space 0.5 can? Man, I feel like there's some Form 1 vibes there, if that's the case.
The blast baffle and the second baffle are spaced different. It uses a different spacing on first and second baffle, and after that it goes static. So we kind of have the recessed OD baffles that gives it the ribbed look, you know. All of the ribbed baffles that you see are static spaced, but they're it's kind of hard to see because we're good at welding. But there are several baffles before you get to those recesses, and those are spaced a little different.
And then I would say that, guys, I mean, I know we talk a lot about progressive spacing, especially over the years, but you can definitely come up with quite a bit of performance with static spacing.
We tested it, and I mean, it didn't make any difference. We tested progressive spacing, regressive spacing, and then like 7 different lengths of static spacing. And for us, half-inch static spacing seemed to give the best performance with the simplest answer.
With that specific baffle, anyway.
Yeah, with that specific
caliber. Yeah.
So that's what I was going to elaborate on. Is every single baffle, from at least from what I found, has a different kind of target zone of where it should be statically spaced to get the most out of it. Geometry plays obviously a huge part. I think a lot of people forget that once you actually stack cones up, they make very specific chambers and things of that nature. So, you know,
clips matter a lot.
I was gonna say at this point, I think clips and just the actual geometry of the baffle in general are probably the 2 absolutely biggest things out there for just non-coaxial style cans. And even when you get into a coaxial can, you still have a center stack that, for all intents and purposes, is a more, you know, a standard suppressor. You're now just adding additional things wrapped kind of around it. In most cases, there are some extreme designs out there, but I think the last question I'm going to kind of cherry pick here is this one, which you might get a giggle out of.
ETA on Pew Science testing for lithium. I just signed. So like how Pew Science works is you have to sign a contract and stuff like that. That's just outlining that you're paying him to do the testing and all that kind of stuff. It's like it's very official. But we got the contract and everything this past week with lithium, and so now I've just got to pay for it and send it off. As far as ETA, Jay doesn't give ETAs. I don't give ETAs. It'll happen. I just don't know when, but it is happening because it's already been paid for and finalized. But it's happening. I just don't know when.
And I'll expand on that since Andrew is very nice. Jay does not do this full. Pew Science is not a full-time gig for him, guys. Just like my Patreon is not a full-time gig. We all have day jobs, and we do the tests as fast as we can without sacrificing, as much, as we can. I would much rather sacrifice maybe some video quality or editing skills over what the actual data is, at least for me. So Pew Science does tend to run, guys, a pretty long time period between when a contract is signed or even when it's first discussed versus when it finally does get published. So unfortunately, I know we all want the data as fast as possible, but you're just not going to get an answer, at least one that's very close in time.
Yeah, I think the contract like before 5 months. So sometime within the next 5 months.
If you do have a couple extra minutes, I have two things of my own that I would like to maybe ask you about. Give me your thoughts on the ARCS data that came out this week.
It matches my experience with shooting it. I learned a valuable lesson with the ARX, and that is you never shoot a suppressor without ear pro on before you shoot it with ear pro on. I got the ARX out of the box and I was super excited about it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go just rip a mag through this real quick, no ear pro, and just so I can kind of get a feel for the sound, because I do that on Arcans. I can do that with the polonium and stuff, no problem. I took it out and I ripped a couple shots out of it with no ear pro on, and I think my ears rang for like 2 days or something crazy. Like it was rough. It felt like I got kicked in the face, but it's light, so there's that.
Your 1022 full auto today, bro. I got the biggest kick out of watching you shoot it. I know you love 22. I think 22 is probably one of your favorite calibers, if not your very absolute love.
Everybody's caliber.
I mean, dude, watching you shoot that and your face light up all big, I get the biggest kick out of seeing my friends when they're happy. So that was pretty cool for me.
Yeah, I grew up shooting 22 with my dad. We would. It was the times when you can go to Walmart and get a big bucket of Remington Golden Bullet for like $3 and just take it out and shoot all day. Me and my brother grew up doing that with my dad, and I'll never forget one day we were at the range, and looking back on it now, it had to have been an SOT of some kind showed up at the range, and he had a full auto 22. I think I was probably like 10, 11, something like that, and he let me shoot it, and it was like the coolest shit ever. And I knew then how bad I wanted one. I've wanted one since I was like 10 or 11. So to finally get one today, it's been really cool.
Yeah, I'll say this. Back in high school, we didn't obviously have a full auto 1022, but I remember the 1022 literally had all the different guns that I had access to, whether it be guns we owned or friends owned. We've shot a lot. We live in a rural part of Arizona, and the 1022 was by far always one of my favorites. You get that big banana clip on there, especially a shorter 1022, and I mean that's just the best fucking time you can have with your pants on. We used to take cans of brake cleaner and we'd light them on fire, and then we'd shoot them with the 1022, watch them explode. Just a great fucking time.
Yeah, my dad, he'd take us out and he would get a big thing of the clay pigeon targets, like for skeet shooting. And he would just throw them all up on there was a big hillside, and he'd throw like 100 of them or something up there, just throw them all out, dump them out on the hillside, and just turn me and he was supervising us, of course, but turned me and my brother loose with some bolt action single shot 22s. And then I think when I was like 12, 13, maybe, he got me a 10-22. And so that 22 is what I learned on. I didn't buy my first rifle until I think I was 18. Like, first rifle that was not a 22.
Why is an otter your mascot? Why is Otter Creek Otter Creek?
It is. Hold on. Sorry. It's hard for me to talk about.
It's homage to his uncle or his grandfather.
I mean, no, take your time. If you don't want to answer, we don't have to talk about it.
No, I'm good. Just it's pain memory to my grandpa. Sorry, fuck. Now I look like a retard.
You are.
Fuck you, John.
Fucking John, bro. Fucking John. I'm about to come up on here and fucking say something all nice, and John's like, "You're a fucking retard, you asshole."
Well, he knew that'd cheer me up.
Yeah. I was just about to fucking say, oh man, that's fucking funny. No man, I cry like a little bitch all the time, so don't even worry about getting.
No, it was my grandpa. He was born in a place called Otter Creek, Kentucky. It's an actual place in Kentucky, and when he started his own company, it was called Otter Creek Engineering. He was a electrical engineer, and so he had a company called Otter Creek Engineering for a long time. And then we started Otter Creek Labs probably about 6 months after he passed away. Fuck. Sorry, I can't.
No man, take. We don't have to talk about it anymore. I'll say it's cool though, because my hero in my life has been my grandfather as well. My parents had me very young. They would work all day and most of the night, so I grew up with my grandparents. And my grandfather was a machinist who was a Marine in World War II, got a bunch of shrapnel, half his stomach missing, and a bunch of his intestines, all that, on a little island called Kwajalein. And I grew up, with a lot of memories, just laying there next to my grandpa watching old black and white World War II movies, and that's how I got into guns. And machining and things of that nature, was wanting to kind of walk a little bit in his footsteps. Fuck man, now you're gonna get me fucking emotional, but I get it. At least I get it. I'm sure a lot of our viewers get it too. So that's pretty cool that you did.
My grandpa was he was a cool dude. Looking back now, I wish that I would have spent more time with him than I did. But he was a self-made man, and I always respected that.
Well, let's move on to something probably at least a little bit less emotional.
John, hit me with something. Call me gay or something. Make me laugh.
You're an oversized leprechaun.
I don't know. I want to kind of give a little shout out to Tyler since he's in the chat. I don't know how many people saw his.
Tyler's in here. He's gonna make so much fun of me. Fuck that guy.
Tyler came up with that one, by the way.
He threw out the Putnik today, which was actually kind of cool.
Did he post it?
I think he posted on Instagram. I'm trying to find it right now. I know I saw something on Facebook, but I can't find it. But it was just videos of him shooting the thing. But if I can find it, I'll play it for everyone. But long story short, I mean...
Andrew, you made a post on Facebook today.
For just an awesome...
I did, for like the first time in 7 months. I hadn't been on Facebook in 7 months. I hate Facebook. But I was so excited for my Ruger 10-22, I just had to post a video on Facebook.
That or to talk shit about what's-his-face. Okay, I found Tyler. Let's see if there's a video we can play. Yeah, here we go. Hold on. I'll share it for our viewers here. Share screen. Resilient suppressors. Let's mute me and. Well, other than the fact that Tyler strikes just such a beautiful, sexy stance, I will say, without shooting that can in person, and normally I'm not a huge fan of cell phone or whatever, any kind of camera video. The damn thing sounds fantastic, though obviously it's pretty fucking big. But
It's cool.
It's cool.
I mean,
it's a cool can.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but we're doing the welding on those for Tyler and Resilient. So of course I've already got to see him and play with them, but they're cool. Well, John has to go to hockey, and
Yes.
I'm gonna
I
get
will
off.
be the bad guy.
I'm gonna get off here and get fucking just roasted in the group chat for getting. Well, that's gonna be fun.
No.
This was fun, Joe. Thanks for doing
I
it.
appreciate you guys both coming. Andrew, if you don't want to leave, you don't have to. But John, if you're taking off,
No,
thank you for doing this.
My little girl.
Yeah, no problem.
I told her she could stay up until we usually put her to bed at like 9:30, but I told her she could stay up until we got done so I could still put her to bed. So I'm going to go get her put down and then go ahead and take my lashes like a man.
For the viewers, I'll try to go through the comments when these two are gone and answer anything we didn't get to. So you can stick around if you'd like. But John and Andrew, again, thank you. I think we did pretty good for the first time doing this and just pretty much straight up winging it. So I had a good time. I don't know if you guys did. Hopefully we can get Brandon in here next time, and maybe get Darren or someone else in here at some point. Hopefully we get everyone in here at some point.
I was super nervous about it being live. I made it through without one single racial slur. So everybody clap your hands for Andrew. Usually we can edit out podcasts. I'd have edited out me crying like a bitch. So
hey, there's still time. You can go ahead and get one in there.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for watching.
Ends with the niggas. All right, guys. I'll see you two later.
See you, man.
All right. See ya.
Bye, All right, well, that I think went pretty well. Hopefully you guys had a good time. If you want to stick around, I'm going to scroll up to the top of the comment section and just work my way down, because honestly a lot of these questions I can answer as well. Because again, we've referenced the group chat. Our little B team, that's going to encompass myself, Resilient, Reardon, Otter, Dino, or whatever you want to call them at this point. DDC, obviously, and anyone who makes up DDC. There's just a wide encompassing group of people. None of us started off as friends. We were all businesses, right? And we all are very competitive, but we've become friends, and we've looked for ways to do business, to bring the best stuff possible to the public, to do it while not having to, destroy each other and coexist. We help each other, designs, all kinds of stuff. Everyone in our chat really likes to have everyone succeed. We think there's enough success and market share to go around that everyone can make the best cans possible. Everyone can offer something different. So it's very unique, and our biggest thing is just trying to kind of upset the status quo. I obviously am kind of the odd one out, as I'm other than what I'm helping with DDC with for the most part, I'm just, making suggestions and helping guys, all of the guys, make their products better. At the same time, though, I have no problem, and neither does anyone in our chat, when someone does make something that isn't up to standards, going, bruh, your shit sucks. You need to fix it, So, it's been great, and the point is it's been, I think, something that has managed to manifest itself out to you guys, because all of the things we do in a day has led to products that are just really, really good. And then we try to still recommend products outside of our group, if those products, again, are up to the same standards that we're all trying to keep, or better, so you will see me sometimes recommend CGS products. You will sometimes see me recommend some other things that aren't from our group, because at the end of the day, it's just about how good the product is, and so. I'm going to now scroll up. I also have a couple things that we didn't talk about that I will try to touch on. A couple of them are Andrew only, so we won't get to them. But let me just go to the top here, and I'll just kind of work my way down real quick. So just bear with me. Hopefully, oh, by the way, if anyone can tell me, did the audio get better with me muting my mic? I mean, it should have, because in theory, any echo should have been from my mic. So anytime I wasn't talking, it was muting the mic after the beginning there. And if it didn't get better, well, then I just don't literally know what to do, because there's not really anything I could do. All the manufacturers, engineers in this chat trying to pick... Yeah, I mean, it happens. But at the same time, again, we want to see everyone succeed. A certain company actually just approached me last night and asked if I would help them design cans, knowing full well I'm helping other people design cans, And it's hard to say no, because I like to make myself available to everyone, but it does get very difficult, because there are certain little bits of information I get from every facet that are privileged, so I do have to kind of compartmentalize little things. So sometimes you'll see me when I'm talking, and I'll kind of pause, and I'll look up in the distance. That's me negotiating what I can say and what I can't say. And there's lots of things I'd love to be able to say, but I give you literally as much as I can honestly give you guys. Sometimes too much. Gets me in trouble. We talked about the stainless. We talked about the aim. Talked about dealers. Austin, what is the expected lifespan of the polonium 11.5-inch 5.6? I mean, so I don't know if most people know this, but a suppressor is a disposable item. At least that's what it's supposed to be. There is going to be a point that pretty much any can eventually either carbons up or has a baffle strike because of whatever reason. A lot of times it's something not even related to the actual can who originally made the can. It could be a mount or a muzzle device situation, or bad ammo, or you just being stupid, or something backing off. All kinds of things. But at the end of the day, 5.56, unless you do get a strike, because it does burn so hot, it does tend to burn up most of the byproducts from I'm sorry, I got the hiccups. From shooting. Those cans tend to last probably the longest out of any of them, up until the point of you actually doing something where it fatigues the material or breaks. Got a polonium gel, just pre-ordered polonium K today, stockpile defense. So one thing I do want to touch on is a lot of people get confused about the polonium data from Pew Science. You do have kind of a lower at-ear number than some other cans. You've got a really good muzzle number, but yet a composite rating that is what really kind of takes over the top. And you do have to understand that what Pew Science is doing with the composite is they're mapping the full field of sound Okay, so what that means is instead of just taking left or right ear, left, right muzzle, or even both, so let's say 4 mics, they're also then setting up additional mics. We call it mapping, and looking, at that. So there's pluses and minuses to that, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, while the results might be fantastic, overall in this big map of what someone here would expect, and someone here would expect, and someone here would expect, someone shooting expect, someone behind us would expect. Most of us really only care about ourselves, or the people, front of the gun, left or right of the gun, whatever. So everyone's going to have different interpretations of what they hold value to, so that is something you have to look at. The polonium, very similar to my non-vented 50-degree angled can that I just recently built. We're going to be doing another version of that is vented partially. Polonium has a lot of cones for its size. It's very interesting how that is working out for them. So while it doesn't have necessarily the quietest at ear numbers, its total package is really quite impressive. The other thing is, you look at like the ARCS data, right? And the ARCS was only about, I want to say, a half of a rating below at ear than the polonium with roughly the same size. Yet when you shoot an ARCS and a polonium right next to each other, from the shooter's perspective, there's a fairly significant difference. So at the end of the day, you do have to remember that there's a lot of different things going on when we're talking about how quiet a can is. We've got how intense that shot is, how long that shot, lasts, basically. Everything after the peak, how high it is. So we're calculating a total amplitude over time. We're looking at how much energy you are getting from an auditory exposure perspective. And because the polonium delays things so long, you're kind of being exposed, at least from what I've seen from the waveforms I've been able to get, you're getting exposed a fairly low amplitude, but for a long enough period of time that it brings these at-ear numbers kind of closer together, where the ARCS has almost double after the peaks in amplitude, but such a short amount of time that it kind of skews the data in some ways. So if we're looking at auditory risk units, they're very kind of similar, but when you're looking at actual perception to the shooter, the difference is quite a bit greater. And I know this is probably going right over your all heads, but my point is we can't get too hung up either on just that figure. Are plans for... Oh, shit, I'm sorry, man. Are there plans for a dedicated big bore rifle can? I'll be honest with you, I think the only big bore stuff that Otter at least has on their minds at the moment is maybe going to be, like a 338 type of a can, I don't think there's much interest in our little group of developers for the bigger stuff so much. But I could be wrong on that. I can always ask later what their plans are. I mean, at some point, every company in our little group wants to have an offering for every kind of caliber out there. Whether, and what I say is not too narrow, like this is a 22 250 can. No one's going to be able to do that. But this is a 45 board can specific for big bore rifles, or this is a whatever. But like Andrew was saying, there's only so much production capacity, and they already struggle to meet the demand they have for the cans they already have. And one of the biggest things, going back to what some people worried about, companies going out of business, The way companies typically go out of business, at least in this business, is they scale up too quickly. They go out and they go, okay, we've got 1 or 2 machines, and they're doing really well, and suddenly they go and they leverage up and buy 10, 15, 20 machines, hire the people to do all overnight, okay? And then they go through this they call it an S curve. They go through this super growth period, and then they get to kind of this period where growth slows down a little bit, and they still have a big net overhead and bills. So the beauty of Otter, DDC, resilient, Liberty suppressors, is that the business models are very conservative. Where are the white trash tactical homies? Well, man, I'm kind of a white trash tactical homie, but Brandon and Ryan Dale, you guys probably know him. Dale had hockey, just like John had to go to hockey, and neither one on the spur of the moment wanted to cancel that. Brandon committed, but he did the age-old mistake of committing to something before speaking to the wife. And once a year, the rodeo comes to town, to Burgerstown, Pennsylvania, which you can imagine they don't get the rodeo too often. And they take their little baby, they have the cutest little girls, and they take them to that, and it's late at night. And long story short, that's where they had to go to. There was talk about maybe trying to do it, for a few minutes while they're out there. But we're just going to reschedule, and we'll have Brandon and Dale on. We'll get Darren on here. Well, we're going to get everyone on here at some point as people. Now that Andrew has been on here and John has been on here, it's going to give all of those guys a little bit more of a comfort, that this is possible, it works, everything's fine, because they haven't done this kind of stuff. If you're not used to going up on camera, especially live, like they were saying, without being able to edit, it's a little bit scary for some people. So I'm a little bit more used to it, but even then, it can sometimes be a little even scary for me. So saw Andrew messing with the Inconel. Yeah, we went over all that. But like the destructive testing's been showing, with geometry, you can mitigate a lot of the benefits that of Inconel. And we've also been showing that Inconel isn't necessarily the material we all sometimes thought it was, And sometimes not still at the same thing. I mean, again, it's, all about how it's actually made and the quality control standards that are around it. First time buyer here, not that knowledgeable in this area. Is polonium the best versus the other materials used for? Well, polonium is a can, it's not a material, but specialist, there's some debate about that. Is polonium the best 5.56 can right now? And again, that goes back to what I was just talking about. What do you value most? Is it shooter's perspective? Do you do a lot of CQB, for example, where the muzzle side might be a little bit more important to you? Blah, 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 blah. I can tell you this. I would say that polonium is arguably the best 5.56 bore can currently on the market. I would say that the Sierra 5 is actually coming out to be pretty good too. It's having some issues with materials. A lot of that's going to be probably manufacturing from what I've talked to. And like Andrew was saying earlier, when you make a shit ton of cans like Dead Air makes, right? Even when 1%, which is an acceptable rate of failure in the industry for sure, because they've made so many, that 1% can still be so large that it's tougher for them from a perspective, okay, this can, has an issue. So I would say Sierra 5 is still a good choice as well, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Those Silencer Student Polos are fire. Yeah, man, they are fucking fire. Like I said, I think I said this in the last live stream. If you guys are really interested in getting some Silencer Student Polos, I might, do an order of, say, a few different sizes and throw them up for you guys. I'd need to maybe make $5 on a shirt or something like that just to go towards the channel and make it all worth my while. But yeah, man, I can do that if other people do, want some. I've been thinking about bringing some stickers back and some things, like that. Just to try to have a little bit of fun with you guys. So I've been putting a lot of effort in these live streams and kind of changing up even the way we do videos. It's just to really interact with you guys more. Have a little bit more of a close-knit community. If for those who might not maybe be on the Patreon, our whole model of doing things is to not be the typical YouTube model where a company wants a review from someone, so a company gives someone a big check and that someone reviews that product. We're more into the science and just randomly, just trying things. We're more into, does our results match what some of the other big industry people match? Where do some of the Form 4 companies relate, suppression-wise, to the Form 1, community? Because for years, us Form 1ers, what did we hear from everyone? Form 1s couldn't compete. Form 1s suck. Form 1, no one could sit at home and make a can anywhere near as good as a Dead Air, as a Silencer Co., as a whoever. It doesn't matter the name. And I'm hoping by now everyone is realizing that's not true. You look at Pew Science even, right? I'm probably one of the first subscribers to Pew Science when Jay hopped on the Form 1 boards and said, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And I was like, dude, you gotta test some Form 1 cans. And that was kind of like, dude, why? That's a waste of my time. Those things will never hang with any of the established Form 4 companies. And now we have what? We have a whole cascading group of Form 1ers who are now making Form 4 cans, and we're consistently blowing the competition out of the water. At a bare minimum, we're on par with some of the considered best companies out there. And that isn't to talk shit to those companies at all. I like Thunder Beast. I like CGS. I like Dead Air. I consider the people at those places my friends. Some of the other companies have gotten away with murder for years, in my opinion. Like I said earlier in the live stream, if you have a suppressor that isn't at least performing up to YHM levels from a suppression standpoint, in my opinion, that can isn't worth anything. You need to be beating YHM and doing it in a way where you're not exponentially more expensive. And again, that's kind of what we're all trying to do in our little group of planned, B team retards. So, don't put your 22 can in the dishwasher. My wife taught me that the hard way. I bet she beat you up. I would say that's not probably a good thing to do if you're married. But I can also say I've put some interesting shit in the dishwasher. I can tell you that if it's not a carboned up can, there are people who do put some cans in the dishwasher before heat treat. The thing about that, though, if you're heat treating material, is you then need to bathe it in distilled water typically, because your home, the hard water of your home, is going to leave enough mineral deposits on it that when you do go to heat treat, it's going to look all blotchy and look basically like shit. I want the FU Polo. Any new Otter Creek t-shirts that's not gay purple coming out? Don't know, sorry. What you double sipping on those red solos there, Longo? So that's Kettle One vodka with some cranberry raspberry juice. And then a little just bit of cranberry raspberry juice chaser, which I'm out of, and I'm very depressed about it, but I didn't want to walk away and go get a refill, which I'm probably going to do here any second, because Friday night is my night that I let loose a little bit, especially after a long week like I just had. Can't even tie my shoes. Way to call me out. Laughing my ass off. The margin on cans has to be ridiculous. Well, it depends on the can. It depends on how it's made. It depends on the manufacturer. Without giving away too much information, there are some manufacturers, some larger name manufacturers, because they're doing such volume, they can have extremely high margins, but a lot of that margin isn't really theirs. That's the kind of the dirty little secret in the can world. It's the dealers. When you go into your local gun store and they say, buy this suppressor, I would say your local gun store is probably the worst place you can get advice from. Because they're a business like any other, and they're not turning over as much product as, say, anyone else is. So what do you think? They need to make the most margin in that particular can as possible. So they're going to push you into possibly, and every one's different. So I don't want to come off as every gun store is bad or any of that. But there are, just like car dealerships, there's great car dealerships and they're not so great car dealerships. They're great mechanics, they're not so great mechanics. And it's the same thing in the firearms world. But anyway, they might push you into a can where they have the highest margins. Okay, so that was part of a lot of the thinking when we were doing kind of our own pricing, right? In the B team, well, it doesn't matter the company. To get dealers to want to stock your cans in the first place, all those dealers really care about, they don't care about how quiet your can was or whatever. They're really looking for, can you give them as many cans as they need, and are the margins in those cans good or better than what they already have, right? So the most famous out of all of these is probably Dead Air. Dead Air has some of the highest margins that they're giving to dealers, right? So they're doing it again through volume. Some of the worst margins that I've seen is going to be Thunder Beast. So you can't use margins to determine if a can is good or bad. You just can't do it. So yeah, again, we're trying to compete against the YHMs and the Dead Airs of the world, from every avenue there is. There's a lot in the gun world that, just like any type of sales, that most people don't see on the surface, right? So how do you think a company can go out and offer you a free tax stamp when they're... why do you think that company even does that half the time? It's because that particular unit, they've made so many of, it's not really moving at the moment. Time to get it to move, make an incentive to get it to move. So the fact that they can eat $200 tells you that they've got some margin built in those cans, right? Dealer still's got to make at least probably $100 off that can, if not more. So it gives you a little bit of perspective. So now us on the smaller end of the spectrum, where we're not making as many cans, it's a lot more difficult because volume is deflationary. That is what gets your base cost in a can down. I gotta take this banner down. I don't know why I still have it up. There we go. Banner gone. What else did we not cover that you guys probably want to know? I will say though, because I did talk about Thunder Beast there for a second, Thunder Beast puts a ton of effort into manufacturing their cans. They have a very labor-intensive way of making their cans. And for good reason. They want them to be what they're known for, right? A lot of people associate Thunder Beast with precision, rifle cans. That was something Andrew kind of set out to do too. Is how can I make my cans not as intensively from a labor perspective as Thunder Beast, have way better price points than Thunder Beast, way better dealer margins than Thunder Beast, but get the same, type of accuracy and repeatability out of the cans. So that's, if you guys don't know, Andrew's a big precision shooter, and if you don't know this, guess what? Diligent Defense, that's their whole deal. Like, our our deal isn't making machine gun cans, or like a lot of what our perspective is hunters, long distance hunters, things of that nature. So yeah. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be investing in the amount of money we just put into laser welding, for example. Yes, we're saving this on the channel, though I think I already answered that. John sucks at hockey. Tyler says John sucks at hockey. I don't know. I hear John loves to fight, though. I guess he really likes to fight people in hockey. I think it's just how John gets his stress out at the end of the week. And it's probably not a bad way to do it, because I don't think many people go to jail after fighting in hockey, at least. We got people bickering. There is a question I saw earlier that I didn't address that I'll address if I can't find another good one here. So there was an earlier question that was plans for an enticer, basically a 2.0, you know, another enticer. One of our pet peeves is that a company will come out with a can. It'll be really, really good, or at least perceived to be really, really good. A bunch of people will buy it. ATF takes 6, 12, 18 months, you know. We're only now doing the 6-month thing, right? So most people before were 12 plus months. And by the time you got that can, a whole new version of it would be out. I mean, I don't know about you, but I would. That's infuriating. Now, at the same time, we don't want to stop the progress of making better cans. But our focus isn't, you know, to bring out a can and roll out a new version of it every 6 months, right? We could. Like, we've already got a lot of ideas for, you know, the next enticer. Some of them have even been made, okay? But we want you to get your can, to shoot your can, to enjoy your can, and only then maybe start thinking about the next version of that can. Okay? So at some point there will be probably an Enticer 2.0. Alright? But, same kind of deal, being the fact we don't have a 22 can out yet, we don't have a dedicated 5.56 can out yet, we don't have a 9mm can out yet. 8.6 black, that's kind of been pushed to the front a little bit. So the focus has been right now for us. We've got the Enticer. It's obviously pretty much the best fucking can out there. You're getting the best at-air suppression. You're getting a composite rating that is, you know, in the top 2, if not the top 3, I forget. And it's doing it, what? It's doing it in the shortest length, the narrowest width, the lightest, you know, so you're getting just so much can in such a small package compared to the others. You're getting a price point that, again, is beating dead air, you know, for an example, since dead air is kind of a standard out there at this point, we're going to use them. It's not to attack dead air or anything, but it's to say, you know, a lot of people expect what? The highest level of performance from dead air, and they expect, you know, some of the best pricing from dead air, okay? So if we can beat both of those things, well, that's fantastic, right? Well, we're doing it. We offer a 17.4 and a titanium version, so that way it fits everyone's needs. We offer a short version, S version, so it fits everyone's needs. We did get beat by the Anthem S, but not by very much, right? And still some differences there in the can. Ours is 1.625, Anthem S is 1.75. Could we scale up Enticer S to a 1.75 and probably do what Anthem S might be doing? You know, so again, it's what's special for you, you know. Our goal is to not make these super fat cans that is going more and more, these super long cans, you know. And the other thing is when you test cans, right? a lot of people look at just the 308 data and not the 300 blackout data or whatever, you know. So that's the other consideration there, you know. For example, you look at our channel. We just tested the Nomad L. Well, if you go today, now that we've got the Hyperion done, okay, and you look at the results, you're going to find the Nomad L does great on 308. And it does pretty good on 5.56, but then you get into some of the lower end things like your 300 blackouts, and it's still good. Like, don't get me wrong, but when we're ranking things, it's still further down the list now, right? Because Nomad L, its design, the way it works and functions, requires a lot of pressure and a lot of gas volume, okay? Where like Hyperion, kind of similar but not as bad. You know, same thing. When we get into coaxial designs, they typically shine the most in areas when there's enough pressure to make their designs actually work, you know. So that's the other thing, is looking about the spectrum across the board. Now, you might not care. You might be buying that can for a dedicated class of rifles. Don't get so hung up on, too. A lot of people get very hung up on, you know, do I need a 6.5 can, you know, or whatever. There's very little difference typically between a 6.5 can and a 308 board can, all right? You can take your 308 board can and get a 6.5 board end cap, for example, and get super similar performance, you know. Not to say that 6.5 cans aren't great, because there's absolutely, you know, a use for them if you can afford them, you know, if you're down to go the distance. Speaking of end caps, let me grab one. My pants are going to be falling down, so don't mind them. Yeah, here we go. So here you have a dead air end cap, right? Got the flash cap in this particular example. But what do their end caps cost right now? $80, $100 maybe? Say you have a can with one on there and you'd like to go to a different bore size. Well, Diligent Defense's end caps are the same thread and footprint as Dead Air's end caps. We did that on purpose because we wanted that cross compatibility, and we wanted you to also be able to use Dead Air caps on our products as well. That said, I want to say we've got these things at like 50, 55 bucks. So pretty cool. We laser engraved the back so you have your bore size and all of that on there. So I can tell you, at least on the Enticer, switching from a 30 caliber board end cap, going over to 5.56, sticking in a 5.56 board end cap. Again, we're talking about pressure, right? Coaxial style cans. They need pressure to work. You go and you stick that smaller bore end cap. Most people associate end cap changes with very little performance differences. It depends on the can and the design. So in our case, we're talking 5 dB, and that's on the pulse. That's a good bit from just an end cap change. So a lot of people think about small changes and they think, okay, small changes don't always mean a lot, and there are instances where they can mean a lot. It isn't a one size, one shoe fits all scenario. It's going to depend on a lot of factors. So like we were talking about with progressive and static spacing earlier, every cone is different. You might have a cone and a design where you can figure out that optimal static spacing and then go to screw around with a progressive spacing and find very small differences. On another cone design though, you might find larger differences. So it's very, very hard to rule things out. It looks like we've got a spammer as well, so we're going to have to block them. But anyway. Joe's way too smart for us. Can you dumb it down to us Neanderthals, please? I really do try. I try to use a lot of smaller words, and I try to. I really. My point is I do try. I apologize. The flip side of that too is sometimes when I do dumb it down, then people think I don't know what I'm talking about either. So I know a lot of people don't like Pew Science for that reason, because Jay likes to give you these very engineer level explanations and use lots of big words that make it sound like it's super freaking complicated, and it is a little complicated. But if you knew what all those words mean, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still basic, fairly basic, So, especially when we talk about geometry and things, using some of the geometric terms, and just like if you ever read a patent, right? You might read a patent and just be totally lost because of the terms in it. But then you start Googling what those terms mean, and it clears it all right up, right? So, what's one of my favorites? What's it? Intradigit? When three baffles intradigitize, all that means is that they lock into each other, like your fingers, like your digits on your finger. Like it's just a super complicated word to say something very more or less simple. Will anyone make a 416 Rigby can? I would say the answer is absolutely not, because more than likely the demand for something like that would be extremely low. You would be better off recoring existing can, or have an existing can bored out larger. So, for example, I think Darren right now and a few other people have wire EDM'd some Helioses and some Hyperions out to 9mm bores, so they can use them. That said, a lot of confusion about like how different cartridges need like a very specific build. And like I've tried to explain this in the past, that's true, but not such a narrow scope, right? You have to look more at like classes of cartridges, right? You've got your bigger bore magnums. You've got your regular kind of centerfire rifle magnums. Your 300 Win mags up to your, just anything kind of similar to that works the same. The biggest thing you want to look at is bullet diameter, how much powder the case takes, and then where on the burn chart the powder that case uses is, and then how long of barrels are typically used in that, and then are we talking a semi or full auto? Like those are the 5 things basically to look at. So if when you look at, okay, should my 458 Bushmaster can be that much different than my 4570 can? Honestly, no. They're more or less the same thing to a point. Obviously those 4570 case is pretty big, but from a suppressor standpoint, those cans aren't too much different, right? So something like 416 Rigby, I mean, who's going to make that? Who's going to buy it? You're looking at a very narrow customer base. So, and you're looking at a set of cartridges, anything that needs a bore over about 410 to 420, and just the bore then becomes so big that it's extremely hard to suppress in general, regardless of what it is. Subs, supers, whatever, right? You look at something like 45 ACP, for example, or any of the other 45 centerfire rifle cartridges, even though they're subsonic, they tend to be loud, and that's just because you have that large bore. Okay. And the demand is extremely low on those cans. They just don't sell very well. Hey Hal, nice to have you in the live stream. I wish you would have got here a little bit sooner. We probably could have had some questions, but appreciate you stopping in. Hopefully you watch this thing all the way through, because I think we had a pretty good live stream. And maybe next time, you know, on one of these days, we can get you on here and we can discuss ammos, you know. God damn it, we got fucking spammer again. Block the same spanner and they somehow get here. When is DDC going to test 6mm arc with the smaller end cap on the enticer? That's a good question. So right now the Pulse is it's in Pennsylvania. It's not with me, or I'd probably have already done it. You know, Brandon built a short 6 arc, 12 inches. I built a short 6 arc, 12 inches. He built a bolt gun. I built a semi. I plan to actually go shoot mine. So last weekend I only shot like five or six shots out of mine because it just got built, and all I did was adjust the gas system, you know, and take a few shots to kind of see where it is from a on paper perspective, which was about 2 feet low at 50 yards because I was shooting pretty close. So tomorrow I want to probably zero it in. I have decided at this point, after talking to a few people, I talked to someone today who has a 12-inch 6 arc, and they're shooting 600 to 700 yards with theirs, no issues at all. And they haven't gone out past that yet, but they're thinking that they should have no problem. And that's basically why I built my 6 arc, because shooting 5.56, 2.23, you know, out to those sorts of distances, even with 77 grain ammo, it tends to get pushed around quite a bit. So I wanted and that's with my 18-inch, right? So I wanted something that could shoot out to, say, 800, maybe further, buck the wind better, less drop, you know, basically all of the above, right? Get some of that kind of 6mm performance that everyone loves in the regular 6mm Creedmoors, but out of a small frame semi-auto platform. And I gotta tell you, so far, even though I haven't shot it much, I'm absolutely in love with it. It's been pretty cool. Now, the other thing that I've been doing, we got some stuff to build a 12.5-inch mid-gas 5.56 gun. So Darren at Reardon, he put one together with I want to say a 78 thou gas port. So a little bit smaller gas port. Now I can just regulate mine down since I couldn't pick up a barrel that small without having custom made. So I'll have to run an adjustable gas block. But he put one together with a polonium on the end, and he was just so freaking impressed that he got me into wanting to build one as well. So that's what I'm doing with that. And then now with HR 1808 passing the House today, I did panic buy a little bit because, you know, why not? So I picked up, you know, a slew of lowers, a slew of uppers, some in AR-10, you know, because I do want to build an 8.6 here soon. You know, but I'm not rich either, so that was all credit. That was all credit card, you know. We put the credit card to get used to it. So we'll see what happens. But back to 6 arc. I'm just so far super happy with it. So we will test the enticer on it. You guys will get a video on it at some point. Hopefully soon. So we'll see. Can I draw pictures in crayons? I have drawn pictures in crayons before. Speak a little slower, please. Did you ever surrender anything to the ATF in their rampage earlier in the year? Yeah, actually I did. I already had so obviously, you know, the whole diversified machine letter bullshit. Pass that on the lawyer. Lawyer contacts ATF. They go do all their lawyery ATF thingies. Eventually, I mean, I'll be honest with you guys, the ATF agent I dealt with was really, really cool. They have no freaking clue how suppressors work, let alone what parts are what. It's kind of scary, to be honest with you. Like, you could hold this up in front of them, and they would be like, I don't know, what is that? You know? So, that's just kind of how the ATF works. They have a different division that you literally have to send the stuff to determine what it is, you know. So, the ATF decided to take an extremely crazy view, in my opinion, on everything, you know. Basically, they literally determined the sand, the dirt on the floor at wherever diversified machine was, even that dirt was a suppressor in their eyes. So, obviously, anyone who has deep enough pockets could probably go to court and win, that kind of thing. If we're talking about dirt. But anyway, long story short, you know, it came down to the only things I had from Diversify Machine was on one can that I built. I had an adapter to use silencer muzzle devices. Or no, not muzzle devices, end caps. So not an end cap, but an adapter. And then on another can I had also an adapter, right? To use a certain thread pin. I don't even remember now, but it was for like boosters or something. And they basically said, we can't tell you if those things are suppressors or not. And it literally came down to a conversation like, look, if you tell us these things aren't bad, or aren't contraband, the agent said, I'll take your word for it and we'll be done. Which is cool as shit, right? That's super cool though. But my viewpoint on that was, okay, well, what's to stop you a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, revisiting this whole fucking thing and deciding, okay, well, now it's bad and that I lied to you. And they basically told me nothing. And I'm like, well, that can just dig me a deeper hole, you know, than this hole that I'm really not in. But anyway. So then I just started looking at it from this point of view. While none of us want to comply with their bullshit, I want off their little fucking secret squirrel list. And I'm like, okay, you know, I have so many cans. Losing one or two doesn't, for me at least, matter, you know. I forget some of the stuff I have to begin with. So I was like, you know, bro, fucking, look, I'll just fucking give you these things. Now, initially, I tried to just be like, here's the adapters, you know, let's just be done from that point, right? I can just send them out for record and have them replaced. It's not a big deal to me. So they tried to do that too. And they went back and forth, and they talked to their people on their end and all that, and, you know. And they basically said that if one part is contraband, you know, then all of it is contraband. So if you do want to it literally come down to the very end is I either had to say that nothing of mine was contraband and that I felt that everything was good, and potentially down the road be at risk, or I could just turn them in and be done with the fucking whole thing and never have to talk about it ever again in my life unless it gets brought up in a live stream. So, you know, I slept on it for like a night, and I was like, all right, guys, you know, these are 2 cans literally that I haven't touched in years. I'll just get rid of them. You know, one of them I think was already kind of messed up anyway, you know, so like not that big of a deal. So yeah. The other thing was the whole FRT trigger thing. So I had the FRT that I literally bought like the fucking week that they came out with FRTs. Never used it, never did anything with it. Before anyone even said anything, I was just going to get rid of it because I didn't even want to deal with it, right? I'm like, I don't use the thing. I don't care about the thing. So as we're doing all this like suppressor stuff, I'm like, you know, I know you guys, and now things are starting to heat up, right? They're starting to get hot on the FRTs at this point, you know, because this all takes place over weeks, right? Actually, it took place over like 2 months. I go, you know, while we're here, just take this thing, get it out of my life. That way, I can have it on a piece of paper. If you guys do ever down the road, fucking, you know, decide these things are bad, contraband or whatever, you'll have a record that I got rid of it. And we'll be done. Basically, preempting everything since I'm already in this cleanup fucking deal anyway. And some of you are going to have different feelings on that or whatever. But, I you know, at the end, I just, it was really simple. You know, I just go meet these guys. We met in a fucking parking lot. You know, okay, bro, here it is. You know, we had a conversation. We talked about center marks. We talked about all kinds of stupid shit. You know, again, they literally had no idea what anything is out there. You know, we talked about, you know, what was going to happen with pistol break. We talked about all kinds of stuff. You know, sign a little piece of paper of surrender and done. And that's it. You know. Now, later on, I did see that someone found like a thing on their end that like said like, and they literally classified that FRT as a machine gun as on the surrender paperwork, which is fucking insane. And then they classified each one as like a seizure, when none of it was seizures. It was all voluntary stuff. So even in the end, they fucking go and they shaft you, you know, because I'm sure it looks better on their paperwork end. So anyway, who knows, but for me, everyone's going to be different. I did ask him questions like, you know, am I the only one who's contacted you on the diversified machine letter? You know, am I the only one local who's contacted you? Am I the only one local who's turned anything in? And they're like, no, man, there's tons of people who have contacted us. There's tons of people who have turned stuff in. You know, and then I did ask, okay, for the people who haven't contacted you guys, what's going to happen? And they said it's going to be just like the Wish.com fucking Glock switches. At some point, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, they're like, we will more than likely knock on people's doors, ask them what they bought from Diversified, you know, and go through, you know, whatever. So it's not like anyone's getting out of dealing with this. At some point, they're going to deal with it. So, all in all, I'm actually happy with what I did. I'm happy because they said, they're like, look, you contacted us, just like, you know, yes, we sent the letter first, but you've contacted us. You know, you're working with us. And like my lawyer said, he was like, look, when you play ball, you don't have to play ball to the point of just rolling over with these people. You know, you can put up a logical fight. And even just by doing that, it just shows you, though, that you are at least trying to comply with what the law is. And therefore, you know, you're insulated a little bit. Obviously, they can fuck you at any point. That's what the ATF does. I think a lot of people, they take this perspective of, I didn't do anything wrong, therefore I can't get in trouble. And I wish that was the case, and it's supposed to be the case in the United States, but unfortunately it isn't, because these government agencies wield power like you wouldn't believe. So you can do absolutely everything right, you know. You can get your Form 1, build everything, but if they decide they've got a hard-on for you, and even if it's a case you can go to court and win, what does it cost you? It's going to cost you an incredible amount of money. It's going to cost you reputation. Like, there's a lot of things it's going to cost you. So I, at least in my shoes, was trying to prevent something from snowballing into something huge. And would I have done it the same way? I'm not sure. You know, maybe I now I look back and maybe I would have not even wanted the motherfucking thing up and thrown it in the garbage. Who knows? But it is what it is, and it was definitely a learning experience. And that's it. I mean, You know, I lost a couple cans. Basically, I lost a couple cans because I decided to lose those cans, though. Like, that's where you have to kind of go with it, regardless of how it kind of looks. So, and I did that because my risk tolerance in life might be different than your risk tolerance. Some people take the viewpoint of just fuck it, fuck them, fuck everything, come and take it. Now with my guns, I'm at that viewpoint. You know, you're not taking my fucking guns. You know, you're not taking my Form 4s. That's for fucking sure. But, you know, 1 or 2 of my, you know, 100 or whatever Form 1s, you know, if they would have been dicks about things, I probably would have handled it different too. But like I said, they did make things as, like, the agent tried, right? Like, he really tried his best to get me to keep things if he could. And basically, again, gave it up to me to make the decision. And if it wasn't for the fact that if I did, which I don't believe any of the stuff was contraband. I still do not believe that. But I wanted that extra level of protection. And there you have it. You basically have the entire fucking story. 12-inch arc is on my list. Wanted a 16, but after seeing one built on Instagram and the velocities he was getting, it will serve my purpose here in VA. And that's what I'm saying, man. People with the 12 arc are getting some crazy performance out of that short of a barrel. I don't know that 16 is going to get you really anything too much better versus all the benefits you're getting of going to 16, right? You're getting this very, like, it's the coolest little designated marksman gun. Like, think about it, you know. 308, AR-10, you know, DMRs. We're talking 1,000 yards is already pushing those a lot of times for what the military would call effective. Sure, there are shooters out there in the world who've taken and have confirmed kills 1,200, 1,400 yards on 308. Now you've got this really big package for the most part for what an AR-10 is, especially when you go and you put when you look at something like an M110, right? A big can on the end and just the whole thing. So now scale that down just a little bit from a performance perspective, being able to reach out 800 to 1,000, but now have such a small package. That's fucking cool. Like, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like, right now with the military going to what they're doing right now, right? And scaling up to a much larger rifle and all this stuff. I get why they're doing it because a lot of engagements now are well past 1,000 yards in some scenarios. But the majority of the troops who are going to carry a non-DMR rifle but maybe have a need to reach out further, I mean, to me, something like a 6 arc makes a lot of sense. But, you know, I've never been in combat before, so what do I know? You know, who knows? We'll see. Future is definitely interesting, though. You know, as we come up with more and more crazy shit. Sounds like you've outsmarted that. I wouldn't say that. I would just, you know, I have a better that was the thing, you know, I have a good understanding of all of what is what. First off, I mean, they straight up were like, dude, you understand this 1,000 times. They even went so far as to say I should write opinion papers for a lot of this stuff and turn them in because they literally don't know a lot about a lot of different things, and they're shooting from the seat of their pants. And I'm like, I would do that and all, but I literally don't think it'd have any impact because at this point the ATF is ran by people who want to just take everything anyway, you know. So I would love to think that those papers, I could write a paper for the ATF and go, okay, center marks are actually a byproduct of when you part off any type of round object, it leaves a nipple. And then to remove that nipple, you either need to machine it off or use an end mill and come vertically down on a mill, which is going to leave a mark, as well as parting off is going to leave a mark. As well, you know, like, that doesn't mean the thing is fucking center marked, does it? That's just a part of, you can make chess pieces for your chessboard, and they will have center marks, you know? So if you're determining these cones to be cones or baffles because of center marks, unless someone literally put those marks there intentionally, they're not center marks. But, you know, who knows? But they don't know it. Like, they didn't, they had no fucking clue. They had never machined a part in their life, so how the fuck could they know? I think the current rulings for Big Dick clearance, it could change what they have the ability to do. I mean, I agree, but we now have at least a leg to stand on. We kind of have like a survival blanket, I guess you could say. But you could still, like, the House today just passes 1808. Let's say the Senate passes that. I mean, we're still fucked. Like, do you guys get that? We're fucked. Until it gets now around, you know, to checks and balances to the Supreme Court. And then we have to hope, because of what they've already done, that then, you know, they overrule it. Alright? But there's still a time period between when all these things happen. So there could be a year. There could be 2 years. You know, it just depends. I mean, I hope to God, I literally hope to God, the Senate doesn't lose their fucking minds like the House just did. I never thought we'd see any of this, which then brings, and everyone keeps saying the Senate won't pass it. The Senate won't pass it. They won't pass it. They know it's unconstitutional. I mean, god damn it, dude! Another fucking spammer. What the fuck? I would love to be able to have that kind of faith, but I don't have that kind of faith anymore in our system. I just don't. Not after what they already have passed this year. Not with the Republicans we have in the Senate, who are just fucking flippy floppy motherfuckers. Not with Schumer as, you know, majority. I mean, all we can literally hope for is they use this. I mean, there's a ton of theories, and a ton of theories that make sense. But, I mean, are we all going to hang our futures and our livelihoods and, you know, our freedoms on theories? I mean, so get out there. Even if you think the Senate will never pass it, get out there and do the best you can to make sure that your voice is heard, you know? I think back to, like, the 60s and the Martin Luther King movements and things of that nature. Like, I really feel that we need to peacefully organize on this kind of stuff, you know? That we need to physically go to places like Washington and stuff and literally be seen in a peaceful manner, though. That's the key here. We don't, if we all show up with ARs and, you know, all that, the media will fucking frame it like it's the worst thing, you know, like we're trying to overthrow the world, you know. So I don't really like getting very political, and you guys have got me into some political fucking... You've walked me into a little political mousetrap here, but, I don't know. Anyway, just be paying attention and do what you can. I do still believe that people, when they scale up in numbers, have some power, you know. We'll see what happens. I don't know what we're gonna do though if it does get passed. I mean, I don't know what does the world look like at that point. I mean, you realize they're getting, like, no threaded barrels. No threaded barrels. Let's forget suppressors. Just putting muzzle devices on, right? I mean, obviously, you can think of ways to get around that. You know, are you allowed to thread the barrel, then permanently attach and weld on a muzzle device, or like, I haven't actually read all of it, but the industry is innovative as fuck. But unless you can buy lowers and uppers and bolt carrier groups, it's all kind of moot anyway, because they're definitely trying to get rid of all that, you know. So even just as a precautionary measure today, I bought a couple lowers, I bought a couple uppers, I bought some mags, you know. I already have a shit ton of mags anyway. I hate to be a panic buyer, but I'm far from the only one too. But again, anything's possible. So it's in the grand scheme of things, it's cheap insurance, because let's say it doesn't go through. I mean, at some point I'm going to use that shit anyway, you know, and if I can't afford it, I can sell it at that point, you know, and pretty much recoup whatever. And then if it does go through, well, shit, that stuff overnight fucking gains value too, you know. I don't even like that we're having to have this conversation, so let's move on from it. Nah, faith in them doing the right thing is long gone. Exactly. So then where is the big red line in the sand for people finally stepping up and doing anything? You know, I don't know. And again, I mean that in a non-violent way. You know, I mean that they, what your actual rights are to protest, you know, from a legal perspective. You know. Where is it? I was going to talk a little bit about dual lock tonight. My first impressions, if you guys want to hear about that. But before I do, I'm going to get a refill. So I will be right back. And if you guys are still with me, we'll talk about dual lock. Alright. 2 more seconds. Okay. So, I got dual lock because I'm a mount nut, for example. That said, I also want one other thing, and that is I put out a video this week to the YouTube. For those who don't know, what I do is I've got my Patreon, right? That's my form of community. That is, how we're able to fund from a community perspective and not have to take money from businesses to, do things, okay? So very, very important. It's a tougher model of being able to do things than just saying, you know, hey, give me $5,000 and I'll review X, Y, or Z. But the point is to give the best unbiased info as I can. So that said, the video I put out about stuck muzzle devices, mounts, things of that nature, was actually made a while ago. Okay, long before I cut up mounts or anything. Information's still completely valid, but I understand it way deeper now than even when I made that video. So there's been another video since then for those who might want to go watch it. It's on the Patreon in the mounts and muzzle device section. And it's cutaways of all the Plan B family mounts. Okay? And a bunch of different manufacturers who make muzzle devices in that family. Looking at the tapers, how they seat, what, you know, all these things. And the vast majority of it, when you see me recommend a muzzle device or a mount and I say Liberty or Reardon, it's very specific because I've literally cut up and looked at every single Plan B muzzle device or mount out there. And while there are some that work, absolutely true, okay, they are not all the same by any shape, way, or form. So that said, fast forward to now dual lock, alright? So dual lock is on the new Griffin line of cans. However, they've made a removable mount as well. You might be asking, why the fuck is it on a pistol? And that is because leverage, right, to actually play with the mount. This is nice and easy as opposed to having a big barrel or a whole upper or something of that nature. Because there's absolutely needing leverage at play here to gauge, you know, how much force does it take to screw on, screw off, fuck with the collar, you know, things of that nature. Because screwing with it when it wasn't on a barrel is very, very different. Trust me, I was like, man, this thing's awful. Now it's not as bad because now I've got leverage. So anyway, what is dual lock? We're going to probably do a video on it, but basically it works like this. It's a secondary retention system. You're going to think it looks like chemo. It doesn't operate like chemo at all. It just looks like chemo. Chemo has no secondary retention for the most part. I mean, it kind of does, just because the nature of the tabs on the back and all of that. But it's just a taper mount that threads together really, really fast because it doesn't really have threads, but it does have threads. So most people don't realize they're just on a different part, right? So all mounts work the same way. They've got a muzzle device with a taper, and they're pulling a mount together to the muzzle device that also has a corresponding taper, and they're going like that, okay? Now, there are things above and beyond from there, especially on the Reardon side. Really ingenious. They've included some shielding and things that have made it really just fucking tits McGee. But how do these things all work? You know, okay, there's a taper. They're all the same. Doesn't that mean they all work the same? The amount of taper, the angle of the taper, the corresponding threads, all these things play a part, right, for how these things go together. So it's actually crazy. There's crazy amount of difference between all the different lines, right? So before Reardon, Plan B was kind of the closest thing to kind of doing it right, but not fully there. They've actually had 2 generations of the Plan B. For those who don't know that, gone over that in the videos. But anyway, so dual lock appears to be taking all of these things kind of and molding along. Like every single mount out there, they kind of borrowed a part from and put it together. I would say it's closest to ASR Bravo than anything else. So basically, the ones that you see on the cans are built in, right? You can't remove them. Like those mounts, the tabs or whatever are. So you can already tell it's pretty hard to get it apart sometimes. But these big flangey thingies are going to be built into those cans. You can't remove them. So how does this basically work? There's a taper inside, just like anything else. You can see it here on the muzzle device, right here. Okay, the angle of it very similar to Plan B. Okay, the amount of surface area extremely similar to Plan B. So it looks like they kind of borrowed from Plan B there. Okay, well that's great because Plan B probably does that aspect of things the best. Where Plan B fails is having any shielding in front and things of that nature. Okay, which this one doesn't either, unfortunately. Not the end of the world, but what else? Then we have threads. Okay, well, they've gone to a coarse thread. What does a coarse thread give us? It makes it faster to spin on as opposed to a fine thread. But a coarse thread then means less clamping force on that taper. That's why other finer thread taper mounts come loose so easily. So at the end of the day, when a mount is made right and all these things are really gone through and you put a bunch of R&D into a mount, at the end of the day, you should not really need a secondary retention system. And if you do need a secondary retention system, it should be under the most severe conditions. Okay, I'm talking super severe, like lots and lots and lots of full auto fire. Not just like what most 99.5% of consumers are doing. Okay, even guys with FRTs and stuff. I'm not talking about dropping a couple D60s. I'm talking about dudes who go out to the range and are dumping full auto all day fucking long. That kind of level of stuff. So you get the amount of taper right, you get shielding on it, and you calculate how much force that joint really needs to come together and stay tight and seal properly. You really shouldn't need any moving parts. Everything should work fine. You could switch to left-hand threads if you want to. Okay, fine. But yeah. So when we get into like let's look at ASR Bravo for example. We're talking about ASR Bravo. ASR Bravo, the angle of their taper, the amount of their taper, that's their problem. That's where we have some issues, right? So the thing comes loose pretty easily if you don't have a secondary retention system. So then they came out with a secondary retention system. This kind of does very similar on the retention side. All right, we'll get to it more here in a second. So they've pretty much taken the same kind of threads, these Acme threads, as YHM. All right, they're very, very similar. They don't. I've tried to thread them together. They're not perfect, but they're very, very similar. So that's giving us at least that quick, ability for just a few kind of, so like right now, if we kind of, again, you kind of have to get it like right, but then done, right? That should be tight, okay? The finer the threads, the more the less likelihood the joint is going to come apart, again, corresponding to how much taper we have. So now we get to, okay, what did we borrow from Chemo? Well, from Chemo, we kind of borrow the whole, just the way it looks, really. That's kind of about it, and the fact that it comes together fast. Really nothing else borrowed from Chemo other than how it aesthetically looks. And that's not even that they borrowed it from Chemo, it's that if you want to do the retention system they did, it needs to look this way, okay? Now, what about the retention system then? Okay, so we've borrowed kind of a taper from Plan B. We've borrowed threads kind of from YHM. Now we get to, okay, so because we've gone to this finer thread, now we are back to needing a secondary retention system, more than likely. It depends though, right? Now for me so far, I haven't shot this thing, but I mean, it locks up pretty good even without the secondary retention system. I plan to do quite a bit of shooting with it in the unlocked position and see what happens, see if it comes loose. Though, even when it's in the unlocked position, it does have some secondary retention, and that is just due to the design. So these little pedal thingies, okay, when you go to spin this on, these pedals are actually narrower than the back of the muzzle device, so they need to flare out as the muzzle device is going in. So there's some natural spring clamping force from the steel that is already going to act like secondary tension just from that force, clamping around a little bit, and from the friction that's going to be created by where it's touching, okay? So even then, it's almost sort of actually an ingenious way to do it, though to do it this way, they've ended up making it really long. How long? If you saw my pictures this week, it's longer than ASR Bravo, but shorter than YHM and Chemo. Okay. Less moving parts than Chemo, so that's a big win. I'm not a huge fan of these little pins that they've got in here, but we'll see what happens there. Only time will tell. Really, this whole thing is only 3 parts. A base part that has these flaps, okay, and that's going to have your taper, like your base mount. A spring, and then this collar that is, instead of threading downward, actually goes the opposite way. It's coming upward, and it doesn't thread. And then the pins that lock this collar into place around these pedals. So I know this is all really hard to do without high-resolution photos and things of that nature. We're going to do a review on this thing. We're going to do an in-depth video on this thing at some point. But you've got a ring, and it's got teeth, very similar to AAC 51 and 90, whatever. I forget what the fuck that even was. Very similar, though, to what? ASR Bravo. It's got pretty much the exact same teeth. So ASR Bravo, its secondary tension is you turn a ring, it makes these little pawls come in, and they kind of go into these little teeth. Very, very similar. Like, this is more like ASR Bravo than literally any other mount. You've got little tiny, there's 3 little teeth that right now the pedals are spread out. They're being forced apart as you thread things together. And then what this collar does is you pull it down like the foreskin on your dick, and you can either turn it. Now this is the shitty part. It's great in their minds, but most consumers, unfortunately, no offense to you guys, aren't the smartest in the world. But you have a neutral position that's in the middle, so it's kind of confusing. So you literally have to pull down. And you can either go, so like right now, let's say we're all the way left. Okay, where's the camera? So let's say I've turned all the way left. So let's say we're all the way left, we're in the lock position. So if I want to put it in neutral, I don't just pull down and go all the way right. I have to pull down and go 50%. So I pull down and I go over. And now I'm in the unlocked position. So let's say I pull down and continued going over, I'm still tight. Now they've got a reason that they did this, because they're trying to solve the problems with doing teeth where you only have never really a perfect spot where the teeth meet on every single muzzle device and mount. So they're trying to double up, how many spots there are. I mean, that's smart in a way, but also more complicated in a way. And at least for me, with this specific mount and this, is not really working. So long story short, you wanted to install this. You would pull down and you would go to neutral, so about halfway of a turn. You would then slide the can on and then you would tighten it. As you're tightening, it's forcing these pedals open and it should be pulling the tapers together, right? Just like any other taper mount. Already, I mean, it seems, even with those Acme threads, to get pretty tight. Now, from markings that I've done, it still doesn't look like it's sealing, unfortunately, at least 100%. Leah Speed 6 did an Instagram post on hers, and if you zoom in real close, doesn't look like it's sealing 100%. Griffin did a video reviewing it, and if you zoom in real close, doesn't look like it's sealing 100%. So that's where mounts get stuck from, by the way. It's when they don't seal 100%. Once carbon can start and gases can start blowing by that taper, that's what locks them up. But anyway, so now we're in the installed but unlocked position. Okay, so basically all we're doing is now there's little teeth there's little teeth that once we unlock this collar and it slides up, should slide up into those little teeth grooves, okay? That, and when this collar slides up, it's going to collapse those pedals down some. So in a way, in my opinion, just the collapsing of those pedals around and the friction that's going to create seems to be doing most of the retention than anything. So you have two positions. Only one should work depending on how well the little teeth in here line up. So right now I can pull this down again. I can either go left or I can go right. And there's 3 triangle teeth that should slide in, and this should come all the way up. So let's pull down and go to the right and then let go. You'll notice mine does not make it all the way up into the locked position. Now honestly, I don't really so far find this to be a big deal. I mean, right now I am wrenching on this as hard as I can. I can't get it apart. Yet it's technically not in the fully locked position. Now, according to Griffin, you should, once you have a muzzle device and a mount or a can or whatever, you should only have one of the 2 positions that technically locks. So for me, I went down to the right and it's not technically locked. So now let's try going down and all the way to the left. Now there, that one locks. So then from there on, you would remember that it's always down and all the way to the left, right? Now if you look though, mine still isn't locked 100%. And if you look at the back, you'll notice the teeth, I've got some close-ups I did on my Instagram, I think, still aren't 100% in those grooves. But again, I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, you can't break this motherfucker loose. And I mean, that's so it's doing, I guess, what it's supposed to be doing. Now, if I go to try to take it apart, though, you know, sometimes it gets stuck and sometimes it doesn't. So, end of the day, I think it works fairly well from what I can tell so far. I think some people might struggle not understanding how it works and therefore might not do it right. And I literally don't even know that the teeth part is even necessary, because again, I think just even the act of it closing around the muzzle device seems to give it sufficient just grip strength in general. Think of it like a fist, right? So think about like when this collar is down, it's almost like your fist is open around the muzzle device, right? And only the taper is doing what's done. Which in reality, if the taper, again, is designed properly with the right threads and you've designed that joint to reach a certain amount of clamping force, it really shouldn't come apart anyway. But for those who super duper want, you know, secondary retention, it's kind of ingenious to clamp around things. So I'm not even 100% convinced we even need the teeth or need the little, you know, wire. Just it going and basically closing the grip around the muzzle device and kind of holding it because of the spring. I mean, that's where our force is coming from to then push those pedals inward. I think it works. I think you can honestly, even if you ditched the teeth and all that nonsense, or even kept the teeth, you know, maybe the teeth give you a little bit more surface friction or something, but ditch the pawls inside, you might even be able to go back, redesign, and make it shorter, and therefore pull out more weight as well, not add more length to the can. That's my biggest thing. I don't like a lot of weight length to my cans. I don't like adding a lot of weight. I think there is promise with the design for sure. I completely give them a pat on the back for thinking of something different. A lot of people so far, from what I've seen, give them shit because it looks like chemo, but it doesn't work like chemo really at all. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Again, we have not shot it yet, so this is all preliminary. So please remember that. But it's, you know, it's definitely different. It's definitely different. So even right now when I go to loosen it, because those paws, even in the unlocked position, are naturally trying to push against the muzzle device. I mean, you can feel them dragging, you know. So it's different. It came coated in more fucking cosmoline and oil and shit than you can imagine, though. I still need to probably dunk it in some brake clean and get it fully clean and then re-oil it properly. But we'll see what happens. We're gonna shoot it over the next probably month or two, off and on. You know, I've got it on my I got it on a coaxial can too that will probably meter at some point, and we'll see what happens. You know, I really, my biggest thing is wanting to see if it does seal on those tapers, and to see if the secondary retention in the locked position is even really needed. So we'll see what happens. Dang it, I missed when Otter Creek was on. If they went with the CMG guard RDB system, it would remove 0.5 inches of effective barrel length. Oh, I'm guessing we're talking about the barrel nuts. I'm not a huge CMG guy, though I think they do some fantastic stuff from what I've seen. I mean, end of the day, they could go with that, or they could probably design something that's their own, which is probably more in line with what they'll actually do. They're 9mm. Yeah, I knew you were talking about the 9mm integral. We were talking about the barrel nut specifically, trying to get the ports probably closer to the barrel nut, because that's been the problem they were saying, which I thought all of that was extremely interesting. That was great feedback. Absolutely great feedback. If you hadn't heard that feedback, right, and you were looking to build your own, think about all the time you would have spent just trying different porting to try to get the speeds on those bullets down. If anyone listened to this live stream tonight and they were looking at building an integral 9mm on an AR9, you instantly just got, probably a couple days worth of non-having to chase your tail. So the big problem, I don't know if you watched the beginning of the video, because now you're giving me something that makes me think maybe you haven't. The biggest problem with the AR9 integral that they were doing is the fact that the barrel nut is like an AR. That is a problem, actually. The ports need to come as close to the chamber as possible, and a barrel nut on an AR spaces it out far enough that the bullet, even with extreme amount of porting in the barrel, is still staying supersonic. So they're looking at going to a custom barrel nut that's a lot shorter, that exposes more barrel closer to the chamber to hopefully bleed off gases even sooner. All right, well, I think, yeah, okay, that's good. We talked about HRA channel 8. I don't know, did any of you guys watch the Hyperion stuff this week? Maybe give me some feedback, that would be super. I was going to talk about that, but I don't want to anymore. We talked about 6 arc. And that one was for Andrew, so that we'll save that for another time. Alright, well, unless anyone has a question or something they want to cover, I think we are done for the evening. By the way, if you guys want to see, these are DDC's direct thread mounts. They are a sandblasted kind of finish, so it's a little bit different. That's why they're not like smooth or glossy. Lots of porting on the backside to take out all of the weight. And of course, budget friendly, which is the whole point. If you need a direct thread mount in ASR, there you go. And they're really clearly marking them, right? I don't know if you guys can see that, but they are putting all the markings on there so you can quickly look at it and know exactly what you've got. For example, this one says half by 28, and then it says diligent defense. So you don't have to try to guess if you have some threads that are, you know, kind of close together or not. Same with on the end caps, marking the insides of the end caps with the corresponding information, so you can have multiple, and you can just look down and go, oh, this is my 6mm end cap, or this is my 5.56 end cap, or this is my 6.5 end cap. Because when you get into some of those, the differences are so small, you really can't eyeball it always, you know. So, super helpful. Okay, well, it looks like we are done, so we'll go ahead and sign off here. Guys, I think we had a pretty good time tonight. Having Andrew and John on, I think, was really fun. I think we got a lot of very good conversation. So, hopefully we got everyone's questions answered that you guys wanted to get answered. If not, I apologize. In future live streams, feel free. You know, you guys probably saw this week, I hit it hard. You know, I hit, you know, this is coming up. This is coming up. This is 30 minutes away. This is, you know, to try to get the message out there so as many people as possible could be involved. But you can always ask questions in any of those posts down below, and I'll try to write them down and cover them. And those questions will honestly be the ones that a lot of times will get answered first. So I will try to get many more guests on from here on out. So thanks, guys. We'll see you later.